Our story begins with a young man being thrown out of a school building window. Moments before the fall, he remembers an old man showing a portrait of an ugly woman as his bride. He also recalls his father calling him useless while taking a harsh punishment for being a good-for-nothing. At that moment, the young man shows an arrogant smile on his face and says he felt no anger or resentment about it. With that attitude, he strikes a pose of superiority and his system appears, saying he gathers anger points. Next, a beautiful girl appears, saying she had been waiting for him all this time. The scene then returns to the protagonist's classroom moments before everything happened. While the teacher tried to teach the students something, our hero was watching a streamer on his cell phone. The young man was acting all silly looking at the girl and did not even notice his teacher approaching. His master was furious and with a dark look broke the chalk she was holding. She then stares at him and asks if he had the courage to challenge her authority. Faking despair, the young man throws his book in the air and asks for forgiveness, saying it was not his intention. At that moment, another student says the boy should copy a poem 80 times as a punishment. The protagonist stands up and says it is natural for a teacher to discipline a student and for a son to scold his father. His classmate gets furious with the boy's audacity and asks who is calling a son. With that, the bully jumps from his chair and goes after our hero to pick a fight with him. The boy is startled to see his classmate's fist coming toward him, ready to strike. Thus, he is thrown out the window while the other students shouted that he was a pathetic brat. Falling from the building, the young man thinks he never expected his journey to conclude so dramatically. He then wishes to have another chance at life, to be able to do everything differently. Right after, an old man cries over the loss of his young master, mourning his tragic fate. Suddenly, the body in the coffin opens its eyes and complains that all that noise was bothering him. Then the young man uses an ice power to freeze the old man's face and make him quiet down. He shouts, telling the servant to stop making noise, and then we find out his name is Jiang Bei. The old man is very happy to see his master awake, but Jiang Bei does not understand anything that is happening. Next, the young man feels a strong headache and begins to receive the memories of the body he possessed. He discovers he traveled back in time and ended up in the luxurious life of a young master surrounded by women. But he also remembers that the previous owner of this body took a lot of scolding from his father for being useless. The old servant then asks if he is feeling unwell or if he is still worried about the arranged marriage. Jiang Bei remembers that his family arranged a bride for him and that she wanted to cancel everything. The servant says the former master did everything to avoid meeting the bride, leaving him worried. He then asks if the young man lost his memory and shows again the portrait of this Shangguan. At that, Jiang Bei remembers that the boy threw himself into the well out of fear of the girl's ugly appearance. Soon a screen appears in front of him showing that he awakened the anger system. The system explains that the points are negative emotions and can be used to increase his power. With that, he asks the servant if he has any negative feelings, and the old man denies everything. But the system collects 10 more anger points, proving that the servant was lying. The protagonist says he does not want to bother honest people and asks the servant to help him change clothes. Afterward, he gets ready and says he is prepared to meet the father and daughter to collect more points. Elsewhere, the girl's father talks to Jiang Bei's father about the future of the family. His daughter complains and asks when her brother Nan will return because she misses him. Their father thinks his eldest son is a genius and that Jiang Bei is a good-for-nothing who only causes trouble. The girl's father remembers that the arranged groom is the second son and not the eldest. When Jiang Bei arrives, the girl greets him but says she would rather meet his brother. Her father then says he will not promise his daughter to the young man, but that if it were the eldest brother, he would accept. The protagonist smiles, realizing they're not friendly visitors, and that he does not need to hold back. He insults the girl's father, saying he will only live until 35 years of age. With this offense, the young man manages to collect many anger points from everyone in the room. The young woman gets furious with his audacity and asks who gave him the courage to speak like that. Jiang Bei then approaches with a mischievous smile and says he will show her. He insults her, saying that up close she looks like a pig's foot and from afar like a broom. The young man continues humiliating her and offers her a green hat to wear when it gets cold. She cries and Jiang Bei's father calls him an ungrateful son, but the boy thinks everything is perfect. Afterward, his father throws him into the woodshed, furious that he ruined the engagement. The protagonist complains about being thrown in there with a chubby servant named Pang Hu. His father throws some books at him and asks who he thinks he is to act that way. Then the man orders him to study the 3 books on cultivation techniques and combat skills. His father stares at him with a serious and threatening look before continuing to speak. He also warns that he confiscated all his money so he would stop living in luxury. The boy begs for the money, but his father calls him a useless dreamer and forbids him from leaving. Jiang Bei realizes he needs to get stronger and his servant asks if he is going to start cultivating. At that, the system warns that he can use his 308 anger points to improve his cultivation. With a smile, he accepts the offer because he says he cannot sit still to cultivate normally. A strong aura of power then explodes from the boy's body and leaves his chubby servant scared. He feels his body lighter and wonders if this is how an immortal feels when using their powers. The system shows that he reached the first stage of Q collection, but has no points for skills. Peng Yu asks if his young master is okay, and the protagonist has a wicked idea. With a scary smile, he stares at the servant and asks if the boy has been following him for a long time. The chubby boy remembers his master talked about women and thinks he can no longer hold back his desires. The hero thinks his playboy reputation must have created enemies he can use to gain points, but his servant misunderstands everything and says they have no money to hire a maid. Then Pang Hu offers himself to his master with an embarrassed face, making the mood awkward. Annoyed, Jiang Bei kicks the servant and shouts that he is looking for enemies for a good fight. Fallen on the ground, the chubby boy asks his master to spare him and says there are people with a grudge against him. He then reveals that the leader of these enemies is someone named Young Master Chen Ju. Excited, the young man says Chen Ju will be the lucky one of the night and leaves, dragging his servant through the city. The two then arrive at a very fancy place in the city called Yundu Restaurant. A grand banquet was taking place there for a very important woman named Yan Lan. Her assistant says the city is full of talented people, and it is a good opportunity for exchanges. Miss Yan Lan then appears, and the theme of that night's event would be about flowers. The assistant announces that whoever writes the best song or poem about the theme will get to meet her, but that the crowd of men present goes crazy, and everyone starts shouting wanting to be chosen. Jiang Bei finds that business tactic quite familiar, and his servant soon spots this Chen Ju. The chubby boy points to his master's rival, who is introducing himself to the beautiful Yan Lan. Upon seeing his enemy's face, the protagonist is very surprised because he recognizes him from somewhere. Chen Ju brags about his wealth, and Jiang Bei recognizes him as his enemy from his past life. Recognizing the guy who threw him off the building, our hero clenches his fist with a lot of anger. He remembers that in his past life this guy caused his demise and decides to settle the score once and for all. A lady asks Chen Ju which flower he loves, and the young man says he will capture Yan Lan's heart. He then answers that he only loves peonies because they are noble and magnificent, just like him. With that, Jiang Bei mocks him, saying the playboy now likes peonies instead of chrysanthemums. The rival turns around furious upon recognizing Jiang Bei's voice, provoking him in the crowd. With a smile, he collects 20 anger points and says that special name suits him perfectly. The hero continues the provocation, imagining Chen Ju as a flower, and the people around start laughing. His enemy gets furious, but Jiang Bei continues the humiliation with double, meaning jokes. Totally annoyed, our hero's rival gives a deadly glare and calls him a brat. With this provocation, the system collects 50 more anger points to the young man's delight. The rival cannot hold his anger and jumps to attack Jiang Bei, shouting about being humiliated in public, but he stops midway, remembering that Miss Yan Lan is watching everything, and he cannot lose his class. The protagonist continues to mock him, saying he will not stoop to his level, and thinks he is going to have fun. He then begins to recite a poem calling his enemy a unique marvel and himself his father. The audience laughs while Jiang Bei continues the offensive poem, collecting 50 more anger points. Everyone around bursts into laughter, and the system warns that 80 more points were successfully collected. Unable to take the humiliation anymore, the rival shouts that he cannot take it and tries to run away from there. Our hero shouts that the son should call for his father, and Chen Ju trips, collecting 100 anger points. Followed on the ground, the rival complains of pain, and the protagonist is happy with the wave of points he got. He thinks his speech was witty and humorous, showing that he has a lot of talent for it. With that, Miss Yan Lan's assistant wonders if she would invite him to recite a poem. The young man gets a confident look and thinks about the possibility of reciting a beautiful poem for the lady, but to everyone's surprise, he simply says he cannot, leaving the audience shocked by the answer. His rival then takes the chance to mock him, saying he is useless and a disgrace to the city. Jiang Bei then stares at him with a serious look and says a man should never be told he cannot do something. With an impressive leap, he goes to Miss Yan Lan and says he will think of a poem about flowers. He lands elegantly right in front of the beautiful lady, who watches him with curiosity and admiration. His eyes shine with determination, and in an instant he says he already knows exactly what he will recite. The lady is enchanted when he begins to recite about loving the lotus that grows from the mud without getting stained. He continues his poem about the lotus and its pure and immaculate ripples, capturing her attention. As he walks, the lady thinks his observation about the flower is insightful and that he truly loves it. The flower's fragrance reaches far, and his description leaves her face completely flushed. She feels as if it were the gaze of a lover appreciating the flowers and gets completely flustered. He finishes the poem saying the flower should be viewed from afar and with respect, leaving the lady blushing. With a charming smile, the young man says her beauty should not be profaned by anyone. The young woman has an exaggerated reaction and seems to have been deeply struck by our hero's words. At that, she falls to the ground gasping, and her assistant runs over worriedly, asking if she is okay. The lady praises the poetry and writes down the incomplete verse, thinking he is a talented man and wants to meet him. She then invites him to have tea and chat, but the protagonist tells her to skip that part. Instead, he asks her to arrange a room for him to spend the night, leaving everyone open-jawed. Miss Yan Lan and her assistant are shocked by the boy's audacity and call him a scoundrel. The crowd explodes with anger, and his rival Chen Ju shouts that he will fight him for disrespecting the lady. Our hero is happy to see the system collecting many anger points from everyone present. The lady is disappointed with his arrogance, but acknowledges that his poetry was the best of the night. She seems to agree with the proposal, and the young man realizes he got what he wanted with his attitude. Then Jiang Bei says he is going to the room alone and leaves the room fee for her to pay. With a confident look, he asks if there is any problem with that, leaving the young woman speechless. She wishes him a good night and realizes she was tricked, while the crowd shouts that he only wanted to sleep. With this move, the system collects 30 more points from his rival and 20 from another person. The protagonist goes up the stairs, and his servant runs after him, asking him to wait. Watching him walk away, the lady thinks she misjudged him and that he is truly someone unique. The next morning we see our hero outside the restaurant where he spent the night. The young man yawns, feeling very sleepy after having had a peaceful night of rest. Pang-hu praises him, saying he was amazing and that he mastered new cultivation techniques during the night. The protagonist is surprised and asks how the servant found out about his new combat skills. He then confirms that he mastered the technique but brags, saying it took him only 3 seconds. Excited, the servant suggests telling the good news to his father, but the boy rejects the idea immediately. Our hero says they need to eat first, but Pang-hu remembers that his father confiscated all their money. With a wicked smile, he gets an idea and says their family is wealthy and must have properties. The servant suggests going to Chianlai village, and the protagonist thinks the place sounds like a casino. Arriving there, the two come across a completely abandoned place covered in spider webs. Our hero's expression completely changes, and he gets a very unwelcoming look on his face. He shouts that this is a slum, but the servant explains that this is the village where they collect rent. Pang-hu explains that powerful families control the land and rent it to refugees and farmers, but he says that due to a great drought, no one was able to pay the rent last month. Furious, Jiangbei understands they are there to take money from the poor, and his servant asks him to calm down. Suddenly, an angry voice shouts, calling someone a despicable person, and the hero turns to look. A heavy-set woman then argues with a little girl for accidentally splashing dirty water on her dress. The girl's brother defends her, saying it was spring water they fetched from 10 kilometers away. The woman gets furious with the answer and starts attacking the siblings, who cry out in pain and fear. Then she picks up a ceramic shard from the ground with an evil look, ready to hurt the girl. The villain approaches the girl and threatens to ruin her face for dirtying her expensive clothes. Crying, the little girl begs for mercy while the woman brings the shard closer to her face. Suddenly, someone calls her a heavy-set woman, and she turns around, surprised by the unexpected insult. With a flying kick, our hero appears and shouts for her to let go of the girl immediately. The woman flies far away and recognizes Jiangbei, who pretends to have slipped and hit her by accident. With a smile, he says he saw a pig fiend yelling at a child and could not hold himself back. Annoyed, the woman asks if he is calling her a pig fiend, and he gains 166 points. He shows a mirror and says she looks a lot like a pig and gains 366 more points. She insults him as a useless cultivator, but the young man says he is just telling the truth and gains more points. The protagonist then turns to the children and asks what kind of person the pig fiend's sister is. With a confident look, he tells the children not to be afraid, because he will protect them from her. The older boy looks at him with tear-filled eyes, but still a bit suspicious. He then says that this Shangguan comes to the village and uses force against them for any reason. The boy reveals that their father lost his sight because of her, and Jiangbei is furious at the cruelty. The children and the hero agree she is a horrible person and a pig fiend, leaving the villain shocked. Furious, the woman releases her power aura and shouts that she will fight all those useless fools. The system shows that Jiangbei has 120 anger points and his cultivation went up to the 6th stage. Our hero then stares at her angrily and says they are the ones who should be angry with her. He holds her arm tightly, stopping her from attacking the defenseless children. With a threatening look, he holds her and demands that she apologize to the children right now. The woman refuses to obey and arrogantly asks who he thinks he is to give her orders. With it, the young man slaps her and shouts that she is not worthy of being called an adult. Shocked, the woman asks when he got so much cultivation power to defeat her. The protagonist hits her again and asks who she thinks she is to know that. He says she is ugly and that he does not hit women, but that she's not human, and gains 266 points. With 366 more points, he asks if insults are enough without money or cultivation. The children look at the young man with admiration and think he shines like a savior. He then gives her one last punch, saying he will remodel her pig nose and give a 5-star review. At that, the system warns that it successfully collected 666 anger points from the woman. While the villain calls him a jerk, the children think our hero is amazing and he poses all proud. With a serious look, the boy warns he will not let what she did to the innocent slide. He asks if she did not like his restorative beauty fist, and if she wants some more. The woman is terrified, with her face all deformed, and starts trembling in fear of him. She runs away and the servant worries, but Jiangbei says his progress will make up for everything. Pang-hu tries to reason with his master, but the young man seems very sure of his actions. The older boy then steps forward and says everything was his and his sister's fault. The protagonist pinches the boy's cheeks and tells him not to take the blame. With this attitude, the system collects 6 anger points from the little boy named Erdan. The boy shouts that he is a man, and Jiangbei notices the broken water tank and asks about it. Erdan explains that they fetch water from the mountain because of the drought, and the hero thinks this is inefficient. He thinks that in modern times a water pipe would solve everything and has a brilliant idea. With a smile, he announces he will build a water canal, leaving everyone shocked by the cost. Jiangbei says he will ask his father for 50,000 coins to build the canal and fix the road. He gives the servant 15 minutes to get the money and the workers to start the construction. At that, an old man appears and introduces himself as the village chief, saying the girl told him everything. The chief and the children's blind father thank Jiangbei for saving their little ones. The young man takes the moment and says he has a plan to revitalize their poor village. He explains his 3-step plan involving irrigation, new seeds, and a team of merchants. The villagers are amazed by the idea, and the hero says he still has a 4th point. He announces that year's taxes are forgiven and he will only charge 20% next year. The village chief bows in gratitude, but protagonist asks the elderly man to stand up. Suddenly, a group of men arrives and calls Jiang Bei useless, interrupting the moment. A man named Liang Hechuan appears and questions Jiang Bei's authority to change the taxes. The hero asks who the guy is, and his servant explains that he is the second master of the powerful Liang family. With this simple interaction, the system collects 66 anger points from the newcomer. Liang Hechuan says Chen Ju warned him about the boy's arrogance and that now he sees it is true. Our protagonist then mocks him and asks if he is a friend of brother Himmerhood, leaving the other annoyed. The rival insults him, but Jiang Bei just has fun and collects 166 more anger points. Furious, the man lunges to attack, shouting that our hero is a good-for-nothing, asking to meet his end. With a confident smile, Jiang Bei decides to take the chance to test his new combat technique. He moves with impressive speed and surprises his opponent, who did not expect that. With a powerful and fiery strike, the boy hits Liang right in the chest, throwing him far away. The enemy is shocked to see that in a few days the useless Jiang Bei made such great progress. He gets up with a sinister smile, but the protagonist just calls him creepy and disgusting. The children and the servant agree he is ugly, and the servant warns the young master to look down. Shocked, the rival sees that his clothes were torn into shapes of hearts and a strange animal. The protagonist makes fun of the other's hobby, and Liang shouts furiously that it was him who did that. With a mocking smile, he gains 388 points and blames him for moving during the attack. Humiliated, Liang decides to leave, but the hero provokes him, asking about the lesson and the taxes. The rival turns around annoyed, and Jiang Bei calls him son to collect more anger points. The provocation works, and the system successfully collects 158 more anger points. The man shouts that he is not his father, but Jiang Bei holds him by the chin with a threatening look. With a wicked smile, he says he will teach a moral lesson to this spoiled boy. He then recites a poem about a father's guilt and slaps his opponent's face. Suddenly, Jiang Bei's father arrives and is surprised to see that his son learned a new technique. His father can hardly believe that in one night his useless son reached the QI opening realm. The men accompanying him say they expected trouble but were surprised by the youth's power. The hero's father thinks of intervening, but his servant warns him that someone else is arriving at the scene. Our hero then kicks his rival into a pigsty and provokes him for sleeping in class. A strong pressure arises and a voice tells Jiang Bei to stop, leaving the boy surprised by the power. The system collects 888 anger points from someone named Liang Wenqi. By his appearance, the protagonist deduces that the man who arrived is Liang Hechuan's father. With a smile, he turns to the man and offers to educate his grandson, who does not know how to speak. Liang Wenqi says even if his son does not know how to speak, he does not need Jiang Bei to teach him. The young man argues that he would never use force over argument, but that his actions were self-defense. The system screen shows his cultivation went up to the second level, and he has 497 points. He continues the provocation, saying some dogs like to bite people for no reason. Furious, Liang Wenqi attacks him with a powerful roar, and he gains 888 anger points. Jiang Bei thinks the old man's roar is fierce, but that it also gives a lot of anger points. With a wicked smile, he decides to reap the rewards and then retreat from the dangerous fight. Then he challenges him and asks what he will do if he continues to bully his spoiled son. The protagonist's father and his servant panic, thinking the boy has completely lost his mind. Liang Wenqi laughs wickedly, and the system collects 888 more anger points. With a shout of fury, the man summons a giant fire eagle and says the boy is finished. The mysterious eagle palm technique advances, and our hero wonders what on earth that is. The enemy provokes him, asking if he is afraid and trying to dodge his powerful attack. The eagle turns into a fireball, and the boy complains that the shameless thief is overdoing it. He then braces himself for the impact of the huge fireball coming straight at him with full force. Suddenly, a blue energy barrier appears and defends the protagonist from the lethal strike. Liang Wenqi is shocked to see his powerful eagle palm was destroyed instantly. He looks around and concludes there is a much stronger expert nearby to help the boy. At that, Jiang Bei's father appears, and the hero realizes the crisis was averted for now. He then wonders if his father arranged a powerful bodyguard to protect him secretly. The enemy changes his tone and demands the boy apologize so the Liang family will forgive him. He tells his son to be quiet and asks if he prefers his face or his life, since there is a master there. Jiang Bei refuses to apologize, and the man asks if he will not give him an ounce of face. With a mocking smile, the protagonist says he never had any face to begin with. The system then successfully collects 1,888 more anger points from the old man. A stone tablet reading "Have no face" appears and hits the man on the head. With a serious look, the enemy says the boy is underestimating him greatly in that situation. Furious, he asks if Jiang Bei really thinks he would not dare touch him right there. The hero calls him an old geezer and tells him to attack, because he will not move an inch. His father's servant despairs, wanting to save the young master, but the older man stops him from acting. His father explains that he revealed his intense aura, and that is why Jiang Bei is now safe. With that, the enemy notices a powerful presence on the roof and feels the threat is real. The man then thinks about the consequences and the great danger he would be in if he hurt the boy. He concludes that if anything happens to the youth, the Liang family will be in serious trouble. Our hero takes advantage of the situation and asks if the old man is shocked by his grandfather's beauty. The enemy grits his teeth in anger and says he can still endure the humiliation for now, but when he tries to leave, the protagonist stops him and asks who said he could go. With a wicked smile, he grabs him by the collar and insults him for daring to try to attack him earlier. He continues the provocation, saying he saw him sleeping and drooling on a grave like a useless old man. The system collects 888 more points, and the servant tries to calm the furious master. After letting him go, the boy tells him not to be so angry and celebrates the wave of points he gained. The enemy explodes with anger, his eyes shining, and shouts that he is also very irritated by everything. He then flies away on his eagles, and the system collects 1,888 more points. The protagonist yells at him, but his servant uses a talisman to quiet the young master down. The servant apologizes, and the enemy says he will not touch him today, but that he noted everything that happened. He reveals that he already sent a messenger falcon to the other families to seek justice for him. A large eagle flies through the skies while the group of enemies leaves the village behind. The young man mocks the old man for acting like a gossiping child, and his servant asks him to stop. With a smile, he changes the subject and asks if the servant brought the 50,000 silver coins. But to his surprise, the old servant shows he only brought a thick rope and leaves him confused. In the Jiang family kitchen, the boy is hanging upside down while his father scolds him. He begs his father not to be angry and tries to explain the mess he caused around town. Sitting in a chair, his father tells him to speak, and the boy says he met Chen Ju at the restaurant. He says he exchanged poetry with his rival, but his father asks why he heard he humiliated him in public. Then the boy continues the story and says he met Miss Shangguan in the village that morning. He says there was just a little friction between them, and his father questions what that means. With a smile, he confesses he slapped the girl's face, making his father even more furious. His father shouts that in less than a day he offended all the families, and the boy defends himself. When his father is about to punish him, Pang Hu runs in and says something serious happened. The servant warns that the Liang Shangguan and Chen families requested their presence, and the father gets worried. With a smile, the hero thinks it is great that the Avengers assembled for him to collect more Anger points. In the next scene, our protagonist appears gagged, so he cannot speak any of his nonsense. With bruised faces, Liang and Shangguan blame Jiang Bei for destroying their beautiful looks. Chen Ju thinks the boy got strong, and that luckily he did not face him, but still calls him despicable. The rival demands he bow and apologize, calling him a handsome man who acts like a dog. With a wicked smile, the youth thinks that beastly creature only thinks about bullying others. Suddenly, he grabs Shangguan, and Liang points at him, shouting in shock at the boy's audacity. Jiang Bei's father then hits him with a strike and tells him to stop that mess immediately. The hero refuses to apologize to a bunch of losers, and his father tells him to quiet down. The boy asks if his father is settling, but says it does not matter because he is already used to it. With a serious look, his father says all that mess was caused by him and no one else. The enemies demand an apology and ask why his father is just sitting there. The man then shifts the responsibility to his son and tells him to resolve the whole situation himself. With a mischievous smile, the protagonist wonders what his father means by resolve it yourself. He seems to get the message and has a wicked plan in mind to deal with everyone there. Suddenly, the boy is pushed and falls to the ground right in the middle of all his gathered enemies. He gets up and complains that his father pushed him and wonders if he is not his biological son. Shangguan's father shouts that he turned his family's jewel into that horrible appearance. The hero retorts that if she is a flower, not even cows would defecate on it, and gains many anger points. He then shows a portrait of her original face and says his work was top-notch plastic surgery. The girl's father gets furious but cannot argue, and even Chen Ju agrees with what was said. Liang Wenqi accuses him of twisting the facts and going to the slums with nothing to do. The boy shouts that they do not help the farmers and even let their children oppress them, and gains points. He then turns to the girl, who says there is no resentment between the two of them. The hero provokes her for acting weak, and she says she cannot afford to provoke him. His father watches and thinks that despite looking like a scoundrel, his son is not a bad person deep down. Liang Wenqi then turns to the head of the Jiang family and asks if he has nothing to say. He complains that Jiang Bei changed the taxes without authorization and that it disrespects the other families. The protagonist's father says Liang is overthinking and that he was the one who asked to resolve it. He also says he cannot control the fights and that young people need some bruises to grow. With that, Liang Wenqi complains about his son's broken tooth and the bruised face of the Shangguan's daughter. The protagonist says it is better for the elders to resolve the grudges of the younger ones to avoid problems. With a smile, he challenges the two to a 1-against-2 fight to settle their differences once and for all. The two get scared of the proposal, but a guard comes running with an urgent report for them. The man warns that the imperial guards of the martial king have arrived and are outside the city. Everyone gets tense with the news, and the young man wonders who this martial king is. The other leaders decide to go receive them, but Jiang Bei's father says he will take his disciple first. With a serious look, he says it makes no difference whether he goes to receive the troops or not. The other leaders say as prominent members, they should take the initiative and go greet them. The hero's father says he does not care about superficial gestures and they can go alone. The other leaders accuse him of underestimating the martial king and attack him with their power auras. Angrily, Jiang Bei's father calls them cowards and tells them to stop accusing him without proof. He then counters the attack of all three at the same time with impressive force and throws them far. Fallen on the ground, the boy is impressed by his father's power, who defeated the three without losing. He then takes the opportunity to mock Liang and gains 150 more anger points from the two. The protagonist asks his father to teach him that move, but the older man says he cannot learn it. Shocked, the boy asks what the yellow level is and why he cannot learn the technique. His father then explains there are 4 levels of cultivation and his brother is at the 2nd level. With shining eyes, he asks if his father is also in the celestial realm from so much power. His father says he will know in the future, and the boy complains about the mystery regarding cultivation levels. As his father walks away, the servant Pang Hu comes running to speak with the young master. He hands over a letter and says Miss Yan Lan, the lady from the restaurant, asked to deliver it. The young man is confused and wonders why she would be sending him a letter so suddenly. Upon opening the note, his eyes widen in surprise and he shouts, asking what that is. Shocked, he reads the letter and discovers it is a cry for help from the beautiful Yan Lan, who is in danger. Elsewhere, we see the Imperial Guards have surrounded the restaurant where the lady is staying. Inside a room, a voice wonders why young Master Jiang has not arrived yet to help. Miss Yan Lan says they only met once and they must find a way to escape, but before she can flee, a spear destroys the wall and leaves her cornered in the room. Finally, our hero arrives and with a smile finds Miss Yan Lan, who welcomes him relieved. But his nose is bleeding and he says he ran there because she helped with the room. With that, the young man returns the completely dirty handkerchief to the lady and the system collects 5 anger points. The girl explains the handkerchief was a gift from her mother and the boy understands why she got angry. In a memory, the young woman remembers her mother wanting her to be like a lotus flower. The lady seems quite upset about the situation and Zhang Bei thinks of a way to comfort her. Then he has the brilliant idea of reciting the 2nd part of the poem, Ode to the Lotus, for her. He begins his poem and says the chrysanthemum is the flower of recluses and the peony of wealth. Miss Yan Lan is moved, realizing that was the missing half of the poem. With a charming smile, the young man asks who else there shares the love for the lotus flower. The two then face each other in a romantic moment and he holds her carefully by the waist. Suddenly, the door of the room is broken down and a furious voice shouts, calling someone a commoner. A group of guards appears and the leader accuses the protagonist of offending the lady. The guard shouts that he saw him holding the young woman and Zhang Bei asks what he means by offense. In an imaginary scene, we see the hero holding the girl and saying no one would save her from him. With a completely flushed face, the guard points at the boy and calls him despicable scum. The lady interferes and says it was a misunderstanding and that he is a friend from another city. At that, the guard explains the princess is a jewel and must have limited contact with commoners. The protagonist is very surprised to discover that Miss Yan Lan is actually a princess. The man mocks, saying their relationship is not deep, and then decides to make a deal. He tells the boy to leave and will pretend he did not see him, but the lady does not seem to want to go home. With a serious expression on his face, our hero seems to have made an important decision. Then he announces that since the lady considers him a friend, he himself will take care of that matter. The system shows he collected many anger points and now has enough power to fight. The guard challenges him with a poetry question and says warriors do not understand that. With a serious look, the protagonist stares at him, and his answer to the challenge is an insult. The guard gets furious with the boldness and the system collects 288 anger points. The hero says he is not insulting him but educating him, and that he will teach him a few things. With this provocation, the system collects 88 more anger points from the furious guard. Smiling, he continues his poem, while a strong energy appears for the imminent attack. With a swift attack, the guard tries to hit the protagonist, who dodges at the last second. Zhang Bei realizes the enemy is skilled and that he needs to act fast to have a chance. With a determined look, he gets a brilliant idea to turn the game in his favor. He then grabs a piece of wood and tells the guard to listen to the last part of his poem. The boy shouts that he has a golden club specialized in beating jerks like him. With a powerful strike, he lunges and attacks the guard with his improvised wooden weapon. The man is surprised by the unexpected attack but prepares to defend with his swords. But the hero tricks him and starts giving several slaps to his face, gaining more anger points. With the force of the blows, the guard is thrown far away and crashes through the restaurant wall. Suddenly, an older general appears and the young guard asks for help from his uncle Yang. The general stares him angrily and the system collects 166 points from the newcomer. With a grimace, Zhang Bei says the general should introduce himself before asking questions. Yan Lan pulls him by the arm and warns that this person is not someone he should mess with. She explains he is her father's bravest subordinate and is known as the Thunder King. They say he once managed to single-handedly eliminate 100 dark cultivators at once. The boy gets worried and realizes his new opponent is truly very dangerous. He thinks that with such a powerful enemy nearby, they will not be able to escape in time. The general then gives him one last chance to walk away or else he will have to fight. The protagonist tries to flatter him with compliments, but the general says he does not need that. The man says he has many subordinates and that the boy's compliment was not for him. With a wicked smile, Zhang Bei insults him and says the general smells very bad. The general gets extremely furious with the boy's audacity and stares at him with a deadly glare. Furious, he attacks with an energy snake and the system collects 266 points. The system then warns that the hero's shadow step skill is leveling up. He uses his new speed and creates several afterimages of himself to dodge the attack. The general is impressed and realizes his movements are faster than his technique. But he says experience is what matters most and launches another powerful attack against him. Zhang Bei manages to narrowly dodge the strike and the attack hits a tree behind him. However, the energy snake manages to bite his shoulder and he cries out in pain from the attack. The guard provokes him, but the hero acknowledges that the general is a very skilled opponent. With the corner of his mouth bleeding, the hero says the guard looked much worse than him in the fight. The young guard laughs sarcastically while his colleague next to him seems quite worried about everything. He then begs his uncle to teach the boy a good lesson and shut his mouth for good. With that, the general agrees and raises his powerful hammer ready to end the fight. But the princess interferes and holds his arm, asking him to fight no more because she will return. Jiang Bei tells her not to beg for him and continues to insult the general, calling him a scoundrel. Furious, the man lunges for the attack and the system collects 366 anger points. The protagonist shouts that he will take his family with him and kicks a vase at the other guards. A purple energy hits the men and we see only their glowing skeletons in the courtyard. Fallen on the ground, the hero realizes he dodged a blow and that the young guard can barely stand. The general despairs seeing his nephew on the ground, and the boy is shocked by his cruelty. Totally irritated, the man blames our hero and the system collects 366 more points. With a smile, he says he is not to blame and that he will use all his points on the saw palm technique. The enemy is not intimidated and advances with his hammer, shouting for the boy to prepare to meet his end. Jiang Bei then gets ready and says he will give him a taste of the chaos of his new skill. The general mocks the boy's power and asks if he really thinks that can stop him. At that, he reveals that his cultivation power has already reached the first stage of the Earth realm. With a powerful attack, he advances with his hammer and shouts for the protagonist to get ready. The hero is startled by the power of the strike and thinks that time it really would be his end. Suddenly, the hammer is stopped by an even larger spiked weapon that appears out of nowhere. The general is shocked and Jiang Bei, fallen on the ground, discovers that is the infinite hammer. A man then appears and introduces himself as his older brother to everyone's surprise. The protagonist remembers his brother was a genius who left home to train at a very young age. His brother says their father sent him to check on the messes he was causing around. With that, the newcomer returns the weapon to the general and apologizes for his brother's actions. The man does not accept the apology and tells Jiang Bei to step out from behind his brother to settle the score. Our hero makes a face and his brother says with a master to help him there is no reason for a duel. With this provocation, the system successfully collects 100 more anger points from the furious general. The boy continues the mockery and his brother reminds him his cultivation reached the profound realm. He then accepts the fight and the system collects 100 more anger points from the general, who grits his teeth. In a comical scene, the hero provokes the general, who promises to finish him off, and the system collects 200 points. Jiang Bei continues the mockery, saying he is back, and the system collects 500 more anger points. The general is panting with anger and the boy's brother says their father was right about him being sassy. The protagonist calls him a dog and the man gets furious with the audacity of the insult he received. With this offense, the system manages to collect 100 more anger points for the hero's account. The general thinks the boy's brother is strong and that he could not handle both of them together. With that, he decides to leave the fight aside and signals for his men to act immediately. The guards then grab the princess and tell her to return to the royal mansion with them. But the hero shouts for them to wait and advances with impressive speed to save her. He then kicks the two guards away from the lady and tells them to leave her with him. The princess cries out worried and asks the young man to be very careful with the general. He holds her and asks if she is okay, and the lady thanks him, saying she did not get hurt. The general shouts at him and orders him to tease dirty hands off the princess that very instant. Suddenly, a spike trap catches the man's leg, leaving him immobilized on the ground. Fallen on the ground, the hero advises him to see a doctor and says he likes helping the princess. He accuses him of disrespecting his master, and with that, the system collects 200 anger points. The general's nephew then accuses him of conspiring with the princess to stop her from returning. The young woman defends him and tells the general the boy did not force her to do anything, and she stayed willingly. The protagonist brags, saying it is not a spell but his charm, and gains 50 points. His brother then says the matter is closed because the princess stayed because she wanted to. He offers a deal and says he will let him go if the general promises not to bother them anymore. Our hero's older brother then guarantees they will keep the promise that was made. With that, the general agrees to the deal and says he will no longer bother his brother. But the protagonist meddles and says even so he will not let the man walk away. He lists the general's and his nephew's crimes and the system collects 100 more anger points. The man tells the boy not to overdo it, but the young man picks up a rock from the ground for a joke. With a smile, he says the general has not yet realized what his real situation is there. With a wicked look, he says his only choice is to accept the punishment that is coming. He proposes a humiliating game and the system collects 200 more anger points from the general. Having no choice, the man accepts the punishment and the system collects 300 anger points from him. The general cries out in pain with his bones almost breaking, but says he already made his decision. With a wicked smile, the hero says in that situation he no longer had the right to refuse. Terrified and sweating cold, the man then points to one of the hands and makes his final choice. The boy congratulates him and says the lucky friend will receive 3 super slaps as a prize. Desperate, the general shouts he does not want the prize and offers to sing a song in exchange. But the hero ignores him and hits him hard, collecting 3,000 anger points at once. He also complains about the smell and the system collects 388 more points. With the punishment complete, the protagonist's brother uses his power and undoes the spike trap. Annoyed, the general promises to get revenge, but the boy mocks and tells him to come back after cleaning himself up. The princess then asks if he is not afraid, and the hero says the word fear does not exist for him. With a smile, he says it is an honor to help her and celebrates the point harvest of that day. The young woman stares at him with shining eyes and seems completely enchanted by the boy's attitude. With her face all flushed, she thanks him and wonders why her heart is beating so fast. From afar, the general's nephew thinks Jiangbei used a love potion to trick the princess. He regrets they could not take her back, and that now they will have to wait for the king's punishment. Suddenly, a mysterious voice says it has a plan to help them get the princess back. From the shadows, the rival Chen Juyu appears and introduces himself as a member of the powerful Chen family. He mocks the general and says with such shallow skills he could not take anyone out of there. With a confident look, he then reveals the great secret to defeating our protagonist. He tells that as a child, Jiangbei was attacked by dark spirits and was left with trauma. In another place, the rival thinks that even fake spirits still have some effect on the boy. He then says he brought the general a very special gift for his rescue mission. At that, an evil and scary creature appears, and the man reveals that this is the real weapon. The general is impressed with the cruel strategy and praises his new ally's good move. The rival then asks for his reward and says he always wanted to join the imperial army. The man agrees and promises that after everything is resolved, he will take him to the camp. With the plan in action, they are certain Jiangbei is doomed, and the scene shifts to the Jiang mansion. There, the hero's father yells at him, and the system collects 488 anger points. A servant tries to calm the master, but the man says he is angry at his son's lack of sense. The princess apologizes for the trouble, and the boy's brother says he was always a troublemaker. Jiangbei laughs at his father trying to hit him, and the system collects 188 anger points. His father shouts that weak cultivators are like ants, and it would be better to cripple him to stay home. The boy defends himself, saying he already reached the second level, but his father mocks him and underestimates him. The older brother explains the mysterious realm is only the first real level of cultivation. To reach the Earth realm, one must reach the 5th stage and have high-level skills. His father warns that promotion is difficult and that a failure can even harm the body. The brother reveals he was stuck for 3 years, and Jiangbei finds the cultivation journey very difficult. At that, the system shows he has 6,471 points and decides to use them. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes shine brightly and a strong aura appears around him. A beautiful system girl appears and congratulates him on advancing to the 5th stage. To his surprise, the system girl then gives him a kiss on the forehead, leaving him completely confused. He then asks what is going on and who that girl who appeared out of nowhere is. With the sudden surge of power, he passes out on the floor, and the princess calls his name worriedly. Everyone is shocked to realize he had a breakthrough, and the father wonders how it is possible. The boy gets up and wonders if the girl he saw was just a figment of his imagination. At that, the princess jumps into his arms to congratulate him and leaves him surprised by the action. His father praises him, and his brother asks how he is feeling after the power breakthrough. With a smile, he says he feels great and that the power of the 5th stage is truly amazing. He brags that he can now face his rivals, and his father scolds him, gaining 188 more points. The father praises him and tells him to rest, and the boy thinks the old man got more polite with him. The man guarantees the princess's safety and asks her to return to her room to rest. The protagonist stretches and celebrates that he can finally rest, but the lady is still there. The princess then approaches with a shy look and calls the young master Jiang by his name. With a flushed face, she approaches him, and the two are left in a very romantic mood. The lady then asks why he helps her so much since they barely really know each other. He thinks of several reasons but answers that there is no special reason for all of that. The princess thinks he helped her because of his good character, and that she cannot be the only one with feelings. The boy provokes her, saying she has impure thoughts, and the girl denies everything, embarrassed. Laughing at the situation, our hero then takes a shiny object in his hand to show her. He explains it is a spiritual pill to restore the power and vitality she spent. The princess thanks him and leaves to rest, leaving our hero a bit speechless with her departure. Lying in his bed, he complains she got his hopes up for nothing and only wanted the pill. He then hugs his pillow, and the system scolds him for his disgusting thoughts. The boy is startled, and the system introduces itself as Little N, but he mishears the name. At that, he remembers the voice, and the system confirms it was its manifestation and that it also levels up. The screen explains that at first they were just pop-ups, but now it activated its consciousness with his breakthrough. With a new breakthrough, it will have a spiritual body, and the hero gets excited with the idea of the system evolving. He asks if she will stay in his head, and the system confirms it is fused to his consciousness. The blue screen also warns that it can access the boy's thoughts and memories at any time. With this, the system reveals it saw his more than 10,000 movies and accuses him of watching too much. The system asks him to have healthier thoughts, but the boy complains she saw his collection. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, and the system says goodbye, saying it is already leaving. He wonders if the princess is planning a late-night visit and goes to answer the door. With a smile, he opens the door and prepares to receive his unexpected nighttime visitor. But to his surprise, who appears is the evil creature with a scary smile on its face. The woman attacks him with savage fury and a mouth full of sharp teeth ready to devour him. Shocked, the hero calls her a living ghost and hits her right in the face with a strike. The creature then turns into a gross puddle, and the boy complains of the horrible monster smell. Disgusted, he calls for his father and brother because he does not want to get his hands dirty with that thing. He then stares at the green puddle on the floor and seems quite confused by what just happened. The creature reforms and complains that no one is paying attention to it with an evil smile. Suddenly, the puddle disappears and the boy covers his nose wondering where the gross thing went. He looks around looking for the creature and spots suspicious movement on the roof outside. Afraid, he decides that if he cannot fight that then his best option is to run away. But while he tries to escape, another creature appears upside down on the ceiling. Shocked by the buy one get two free promotion, he attacks with his powerful soul palm. Now with dangers everywhere, his situation does not look good at all for an escape. The two creatures scare him and having no other choice, he decides he needs to fight with everything. With a powerful strike, he uses the twin soul palm to divide and conquer the two enemies. One of the monsters is defeated and the hero is surprised to see the creature could not withstand the blow. With a wicked smile, he grabs the monster's hair and says he will make it start over from scratch. The spirit cries out in pain from the attack and the system collects 158 anger points. In a comical scene, the hero wonders if that is a spirit and the creature cries for its gothic soul. With a satisfied smile on his face, the boy seems to be having a lot of fun with the situation. He then starts singing and mocking the monster, managing to collect many anger points with that. With 2,888 points, he offers the spirit a new hairstyle for the ghost world. Furious, the monster shouts that spirits can be eliminated but never humiliated, and its eye shines. The creature then fires a pink energy beam at the boy to try to hit him. Suddenly, the other creature he had defeated before reappears and attacks him by surprise. A powerful blue energy strike destroys the monster and someone warns him to be careful. The scene focuses on our protagonist's eyes, who seems very concentrated on the fight happening. The princess appears under the moonlight and asks the boy if he is okay after everything. With a grimace, he laments that his ghost treasure that gave him points is now gone. She says she exterminated all the spirits and he complains he was having fun and cultivating. He then discovers she is a cultivator and that is how she managed to flee the king's mansion. His father and brother appear and the older one asks if he is no longer afraid of ghosts. The hero realizes they knew about the spirits and let him fight to teach him a lesson. He praises his father and the system collects 68 anger points from the annoyed man. With a smile, his father says that the next day he will go out with his brother to gain experience. To the boy's despair, he reveals their destination's a nest of dark spirits. The father explains the seal of a spirit nest loosened and they need to investigate. He then asks where Jiang Bei is, who seems to have suddenly disappeared from the room. The boy then appears clinging to his father's leg and begs not to have to leave home. He says he wants to be a rich second-generation kid, but his father orders him to let go immediately. As a condition, he then asks for tens of thousands of silver coins to be able to go on the mission. With a serious look, his father says it is right to eliminate evil to protect the townspeople. The man gets angry and says he only thinks about money, but the brother stops him from attacking the boy. With this argument, the system manages to collect 88 more anger points from the father. The brother says the father's order is serious and they must leave, but the hero asks to wait. Before leaving, he picks up a piece of purple cloth that had fallen on the ground outside. He then reveals he has personal business to settle with the mastermind behind all that. On a roof, the rival Chenju wonders why everything went silent after Jiang Bei's scream. He imagines a terrified boy and laughs, thinking the weakling probably did not survive the attack. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise and is startled to see a ghostly figure approaching. The figure shouts for him to give its life back and the young man is terrified, thinking it is a real ghost. He tries to run away, but our hero chases him with a phantom fire torch in hand. Desperate, the rival cries out in pain from the fire and begs the great ghost to spare his life. The protagonist appears and says he preferred him wild and did not expect him to bring spirits. Jiang Bei then provokes him about the red ribbon on his outfit and calls him alluring with a smile. The rival is shocked to see it was the hero all along and cannot believe it. He asks how the boy survived and with a smile, Jiang Bei says it was just a joke. Angrily, the rival tries to attack him with the soul palm, but the hero holds him and makes him beg. He then asks if the boy is human or a dog and tells him to bark to prove who he is. With a scary smile, the protagonist stares at him and the rival feels he will meet his end if he does not obey. Having no choice, he apologizes to his parents and barks like a dog, shaming his family. The system screen then shows that 0.8 anger points were successfully collected. With a grimace, our hero complains that even with the humiliation, the rival's anger was too little. He then warns him that next time it will not be so simple and throws him to the ground to leave. The rival laments that he could not keep his promise to the general and that he is no match for him. He thinks about running away, but the general and his men appear and ask where he thinks he is going. The man says by military code whoever breaks a promise must apologize formally. The rival kneels and begs for forgiveness, saying his failure was due to underestimating Jiang Bei. As a gift, he offers a golden saddle and says it is an invaluable treasure. The general thinks the boy has wealth and good cultivation and would be useful at the king's mansion. With that, he accepts the offer and the rival celebrates, praising the general's magnanimity. He continues the flattery, but the man tells him to shut up and threatens to strike him with lightning. The next day, we find out his father understood that everything was orchestrated by the Chen family. The brother says the boy felt the aura on the spirit's cloak and discovered the mastermind's identity. His father then thinks about the complicated situation the family is facing at that moment. The princess seems worried, and he concludes she will not be able to stay at the mansion much longer. The boy wonders if the princess is also coming with them to deal with the dark spirits. But our hero appears being carried in a luxury chair and orders them to get another for the princess. Furious, his father tells him to get down and says he sent him to hone his skills, not to have fun. The brother reminds him the mission is important and the city is a considerable distance from there. The protagonist worries about leaving his father alone in case the other families join the king to attack. His father reveals he is the master of the Wuji sect and brought the elders to help with protection. Shocked, the boy discovers his father is the sect master and that he is the master's son too. Crying, he hugs a pillar and complains his father should send the entire sect on the mission. The princess then holds his hand and asks the young master not to worry about anything. She comforts him and says a general from the king's mansion is at the base of the mountain to help. Our hero mocks his father, but the older man explains the chaos started because of the spirit leader. Out of patience, the older brother picks him up and carries him away for their mission. Suddenly, the village boy appears and calls for Jiang, who wonders what he is doing there. The boy begs the hero to save his mother, and the young man recognizes him as Dan from Chuanlai village. The older brother asks what happened because he heard the village was developing well. Crying, the boy says bandits robbed his parents and took his mother as a hostage. The protagonist feels guilty because it was his suggestion that they go to the city to do business. With a gentle look, he comforts the boy and tells him not to worry about anything. Furious, the young man says the bandits will pay and a new mission arises to eliminate them. In Yurian City, some bandits wait for the hero, believing he will bring the boy's sister. A veiled woman and the boy arrive at the scene and the bandits watch from afar. One of the bandits looks at the young woman and says that although robust, she looks quite attractive. The other bandits get excited and suggest they take good care of her before the boss acts. With a seductive voice, the woman asks if the gentleman want to have some fun with her. He then reveals himself and the bandits are shocked to see the beautiful lady was actually the hero. The bandit shouts for the others to take care of him, but the boy hits him squarely with a punch. At that moment, his older brother appears and defeats the other henchman with ease. The bandit leader gets annoyed but is thrown away and the system collects 188 points. With a smile, he introduces himself as a city flower and shows durians with purple energy. He then says he will be very angry and attacks the bandit with the fruits that explode on his head. The older brother says there is no need to worry and he can take care of the bandits alone. But the boy says the bandit's lair is a full plate of anger points and the system alerts him. The system warns him the bandit leader is at the first level of the Earth realm and he could be in trouble. Furious, the protagonist argues with the system and demands to be called master, but the request is denied. He then calls the system at Sundir and the captured bandit calls him master in a strange way. The man points to the lair and refers to our hero with suspicious love in his eyes. Shocked, the boy tries to explain himself to his brother, but the bandit continues with his jokes. Arriving at the lair, the guards stop them and ask what they are doing in that place. The protagonist then pretends to pick something from his nose and rubs it on the guard, gaining 288 points. With the spear at his hostage's neck, he gains 288 more anger points from the bandit. The guards demand the release of their master, but the hero tells them to call the boss first. He then tells the boss to come with a clean neck so he himself can handle the matter. Elsewhere, a guard runs to warn the leader about the invasion of the bandit's lair. The man kneels in front of his boss and tells everything that is happening outside. The bandit boss introduces himself as Jay Dahu and asks who dares act recklessly there. Furious, he says people think he is an easy target, and he will show them what he is capable of. Back in the courtyard, our hero and his brother wait for the arrival of the great bandit boss. Suddenly, the protagonist feels a strong presence and turns to see who is approaching. The boss appears with a powerful punch and shouts for the boy to prepare to perish right there. The two trade blows and the boss throws him away with his overwhelming force and energy. The hero realizes the enemy is also at the elementary level of the earth and decides to test him. With a clash of powers, the divine thunder fist collides with the powerful soul palm. The boy notes that the enemy's boxing technique goes beyond the first level of the earth realm. With a powerful strike, the bandit boss hits him squarely and leaves him injured on the ground. His older brother catches him and the bandit boss shouts, worried about the situation. The boss threatens them and says whoever enters his lair does not leave alive to tell the tale. The older brother says he will take over the fight, but the protagonist refuses the help immediately. With a determined look, he gets up and says he will fight alone because he has not yet used his points. He stares at the boss and asks if he is the one causing trouble, and the system shows his power. The man confirms and says they came down from the mountains just to earn an honest living. The bandit boss says they do not use money, but people's lives to buy things. Furious, Jiang Bei calls him trash and says he will show him what real suffering is. With several blows, he attacks the bandit, who wonders why his movements are getting stronger. The man is hit in the chest, and with it the system collects 188 anger points. Fallen on the ground, the bandit boss begs for mercy and says he was wrong in his actions, but the hero says it will do no good and hits him, collecting 288 anger points. With the force of the blow, the bandit flies far away and crashes through the wall of the bandit's lair. He complains that the bandit leader gave few points, and the system collects 588. Looking at the place, he says that place caused a lot of harm and orders them to return everything to the village. The little boy Dan then thanks Jiang Bei for saving his mother from the bandits. The boy says in the future he wants to be strong like him, and the hero's brother offers to teach him. Suddenly, a group of Taoists appears, and the boy's brother says he asked them to escort the bandits. The The Taoist talks about the heavy yin energy on the mountain, and that a black mist looks like a formation. Jiang Bei asks the bandit about the mountain, and he says their lair was further up. The bandit says that because of the dark spirits they bribed an official for protection. The protagonist wonders why powerful people do not deal with the spirits and hears a noise. At that, a group of dark spirits appears and says a delicious meal has arrived for them. The Taoist creates a blue energy barrier and tells everyone to flee from there as fast as possible. The boy tries to run, but his brother grabs him and tells him to stay there to fight the spirits. He throws him at the monsters and says their father sent him to gain experience, and the boy screams in anger. With that, our hero collides with the ghost and the two fall to the ground in a comical way. He complains of pain, and the ghost also seems quite hurt by the impact of the blow. The two-headed ogre then approaches the boy, ready to attack him with a hungry look. But the boy lands a punch on the monster and complains at his very bad breath. He then stares at the little goblin, who fearfully says he's only there to help the others. The two brothers then approach a building with a very scary and evil aura. The hero says the spirits are not strong, but his brother warns him not to underestimate them. A powerful voice shouts from inside the building and asks how they dare invade its territory. Scared, the hero's brother explains that the biggest dark spirit of the mountain is in there. A giant red skull appears, and the boy's brother fearfully calls it a specter. The protagonist gets excited and thinks that with the biggest spirit he can get many anger points. With a stick in hand, his brother warns him to be careful, because the mountain seal is unstable. The boy smiles and tells his brother not to worry, because he is just going to say hi to the specter. He provokes the spirit and asks if the creature is afraid, and the system collects 388 points. With a confident look, he begins to introduce himself to the dark spirit in the house. The hero introduces himself as Tang Shuzhen, a government official, and provokes the spirit with the name. He continues the provocation, calling the monster a turtle, and the system collects many anger points. The young man then offers a gross reward for the spirit, and the system collects 888 points. The spirit gets furious, and the hero thinks the situation does not look good despite the points he gained. The spirit leader appears with his lackeys and says today will be our protagonist's end. Furious, the spirit leader swears to exterminate everyone and orders his lackeys to end the so-called Tang Shuzhen. His brother steps in and says he will fight, and the boy asks if he will be alright alone. The brother fakes being afraid and says he needs to find General Tang to escape the fight. The spirit leader then sends one of his lackeys after the boy to finish him off. With a smile, Jiang Bei says the fools fell into the trap and he will eliminate the traitors. In the distance, our hero then manages to spot the camp of the city's imperial army. The real General Tang Shuzhen wonders who is calling his name in the middle of the night. The protagonist runs toward the general, shouting for help while the spirits chase him. He then hugs the general, who gets annoyed and asks where that smelly brat came from. The spirits arrive and attack the general, saying he disrespected the boss and will perish. The general draws his sword and says they will have to fight with everything to get out of there alive. The soldiers then advance against the dark spirits, and the great battle finally begins. The general complains there are too many dark spirits and the situation is very complicated. The soldiers are defeated and one of them asks what to do, but the general only thinks of fleeing. He runs away saying he will get reinforcements, and the hero calls him a traitor for abandoning his men. Suddenly, someone says they will accompany General Tang in his escape to get reinforcements. But to everyone's surprise, the boy pulls down the general's pants and reveals his underwear. With a grimace, he asks the general if that is his zodiac year because of the underwear. Furious, the general shouts at the boy and asks who on earth told him to pull down his pants. Our hero tells him not to worry and that even with his underwear out, he must fight. The spirits get annoyed with the general, and the terrified boy says it was not him who did that. With that, the system collects many points, and the hero celebrates that the general is a good anger battery. He then decides to check on his brother and sets off to face the spirit boss once and for all. The older brother attacks the monster with his shield, but the specter manages to defend against the blow. Furious, the spirit leader says he will fight seriously and make the boy feel unforgettable fear. At that, the protagonist throws an apple at the monster's head and tells it to stop yelling for no reason. The specter turns around furious at the boy's audacity and insults him for interrupting. The hero insults him and collects 886 anger points from the dark spirit. The monster attacks the protagonist's brother with an energy beam, and the boy despairs at the power. With a determined look, our hero prepares for the impact of the strike and shouts to him. He then pushes his brother and takes the full impact of the attack to save him from danger. Injured, the boy's brother worries and asks if he's okay after taking the blow. Jiang Bei holds him and says the important thing is that his brother is okay and did not get hurt. The system warns that his power went up, and the specter notices the boy's strange energy fluctuation. Furious, our hero says he will make the monster taste his wrath for hurting his family. With glowing eyes, he stares at the spirit and calls him the ghost king of the isolated mountain. He then advances with a purple aura and attacks the specter with all his new cultivation power. With a series of powerful strikes, the boy hits the monster squarely without giving it a chance. The hero finishes the attack with a powerful punch right in the face of the dark spirit and defeats it. His brother watches everything, shocked by the power the boy managed to awaken in the fight. With the monster on the ground, he is surprised that Jiang Bei reached the second realm and won. Suddenly, our hero feels a strong exhaustion and his body starts to lose its strength. He then passes out in his older brother's arms, who holds him with care and concern. His brother notices his pulse is chaotic and that all his spiritual power is drained. He then concludes the boy forced himself to fight, and that is why he is completely exhausted. The soldiers see the spirits vanishing and the general says the Ghost King has been defeated. The general then spots our hero's brother carrying the passed out boy on his back. He asks if he was the one who solved the problem, but the older brother denies it immediately. The brother says it was the boy who dealt with the spirits, and the general is shocked by the revelation. Confused, the general wonders what the younger brother is saying and does not understand anything. Even while sleeping, Jiang Bei provokes the general and tells him to bow to him, making the man annoyed. His brother says the boy is confused from an injury, and the general thanks the two heroes. In a dream, our protagonist walks alone through the mountain's dark spirit lair. There he finds a crying woman and is surprised to see it is Miss Yan Lan. The young woman runs to hug him, saying she is afraid, and our hero comforts her in his arms. But suddenly the woman in his arms changes and tells him to behave, with a serious look on her face. With a scream of fright, the boy wakes up startled in his bed after that strange nightmare. Upon opening his eyes, he then comes face to face with the beautiful Yan Lan, who watches him worriedly by his side. The princess is happy to see him awake and says the problem was caused by the chrysanthemums. She then offers him medicine and says he slept for 3 days, leaving the boy shocked. The young lady talks about his brave act and he notices her dark circles, showing she cared for him. With an affectionate gesture, he apologizes for making her worry and carefully touches her face. The princess gets completely red from the boy's touch and seems completely flustered by the situation. Embarrassed, the young woman runs out of the room and tells him to take care and take his medicine. He wonders why she got like that, and the system calls him weak for his lack of strength. Annoyed, he argues with the system, which calls him the worst host it has ever had in its whole life. The system warns him he was lucky, but next time he might not survive a danger. At that, the blue screen says it is time to get his own gear to become stronger. The boy gets very excited with the idea of having an exclusive weapon and celebrates the news, but soon he calms down and wonders where he will get all the necessary materials. The system scans the area and warns that the treasures he needs are 500 meters away. He looks out the window and realizes the pointed direction is his family's treasure vault. Hidden, he complains about the guards and the system provokes him for acting like a thief. The protagonist says for cultivators that cannot be called stealing and holds the system. He then says the best strategy is slipping in, and the system asks if he is already going to give up. The boy explains that he actually meant sneaking in and calls it a detour. Without further talk, he takes advantage of the guard's distraction and jumps the wall to invade the place. With a perfect landing, he manages to enter the treasure vault courtyard unnoticed. Inside, the system detects several rare materials, and he is shocked by the place's wealth. Excited, he says he will work hard quietly and then surprise everyone with his power. The boy complains that his new weapon's glow is blinding his eyes and leaves him sightless. A sword with a powerful fire aura then appears in his hands to his surprise. Excited, he says an ostentatious and profound sword like that is worthy of Jiang Bei. But the system warns him the weapon's power is so strong that the treasure vault will collapse. With a massive explosion, the entire vault collapses and the guards are startled by the noise. From the smoke, the boy emerges and the guards decide to notify his brother and the elders. He wonders what kind of thing that is with such strong destructive power and gets thrilled. The system then asks him to name the sword and complete the recognition process. With a smile, he says a cool and aloof person, his sword needs a dominant name. He then decides to call it Little So Zhao, and the system collects 188 points. At that, his older brother arrives and asks what he is doing in the middle of that mess. The brother arrives with his sect elder, and the boy says not only is he fine, but he also got the sword. Suddenly, the sword begins to shine brightly, and the boy is startled by its reaction. He gets on the sword and shouts that the weapon is very hard to control and asks them to get out of the way. The brother and the elder dodge, and the boy shouts that he does not want that either and cannot control himself. With a scream of fright, he flies uncontrollably far away, and his sword seems to have a life of its own. Annoyed, he complains the sword is not obedient and decides to rename it to Little Brat. He then notices he is heading toward his brother and the elder with the uncontrollable sword. With a slash, the sword tears the elder's clothes, making him furious, and the system collects points. The man demands an explanation, and the boy says he just wanted to test his new weapon and did not know they were there. Suddenly, one of the disciples warns that someone is coming from the mountain gate to see them. The elder tells the boy to stop laughing and says they should talk business and stop playing around. The disciple says a man named Tang Shuzhen wants to see the young master, and the boy is surprised. He agrees to meet the general, and the furious elder threatens him, saying he will settle accounts later. General Tang arrives, and the protagonist greets him, saying he is a rare guest there. With a smile, he asks what young master Jiang Bei has to do with him and provokes him. The general then says he came on behalf of the martial king to invite the two young men to a banquet. He explains it as a thank you for eradicating the dark spirits from the mountain. The hero provokes him and says unlike certain people, they do not associate with bandits. The boy's brother says the so generous general can take the gift back, and the other gets annoyed. Suddenly, Yan Lan appears dressed as a disciple and invites him to the martial king's residence. He asks what is happening, and the girl says she heard Miss Yan Lan is getting married. The boy remembers she ran away because she did not want the marriage and realizes she wants his help. With a smile, he accepts the invitation and says it would not hurt the Wuji sect to attend the banquet. 3 days later, at the martial king's residence, we see the great palace's beautiful garden. Yanlan's father toasts with a guest and says his arrival illuminates his residence. The guest is Diao Mao, the girl's groom, and he says he came to meet his bride. He asks where his beloved bride is, and the girl's father orders them to bring her immediately. The servant panics because the young lady has been missing for a while, and he does not know where to look. The father tells the servant to make up an excuse that the princess is sick or sleeping to cover up the escape. With a kick, he tells the servant to hurry, and the man runs out to fulfill the order, but the servant trips and announces that the young master of the Wuji sect has just arrived at the venue. Our hero then makes a triumphant entrance with his brother and the disguised princess by his side. The girl's father receives them, and the system collects 28 anger points from the annoyed man. Diao Mao then stares at the protagonist's brother with an expression of surprise and admiration. With a loving look, he praises the bridge of the boy's nose and seems completely enchanted. He also praises our hero's brother's deep eyes and stares at him with admiration. The princess's groom wonders how there can be such a perfect man in the world and melts. Annoyed, the hero's brother tells him to mind his own business and ignores him completely. But Diao Mao misunderstands everything and thinks the boy complimented his puppy eyes. The protagonist finds the groom's behavior strange and wonders if he has his eyes on his brother. The girl's father notices the tense atmosphere and orders the guards to prepare the banquet for the guests. But Diao Mao interrupts him and approaches our hero's brother to invite him for a drink. Annoyed, the boy jumps in front of his brother and calls the princess's groom a big-headed ghost. He defends his brother, and the system collects 268 anger points from Diao Mao. The groom calls him a pretty boy, and the hero points to the disguised princess and provokes him. Diao Mao then asks if the boy is jealous because he is too handsome and shows off. With a strike from his fan, the hero tears off the groom's hair, who screams and gains 588 points. With a quick gesture, the princess then prepares to take off her disguise and reveal her identity. The young woman then reveals herself and tells Diao Mao to take a good look at who she really is. He says her face looks familiar and stares at her closely to try to recognize her. Then he looks at her chest and says it is not as big as is, making the mood awkward. With a smile, he says he knows and calls her Yanlan's weird brother with a mischievous look. The girl's father and the brothers are shocked by the princess's groom's confusion and do not understand anything. Furious, the princess kicks him and calls him a blindfolded toad and a weirdo for not recognizing her. Fallen on the ground, the groom is shocked, and the girl's father celebrates that she finally returned home. The young woman says she came to annul the marriage, but her father does not allow his daughter's recklessness. She says she realized everyone controls their own destiny and she will not marry him. Her father realizes she was at the Wuji sect and blames Jiang Bei for corrupting his daughter. The hero mocks, saying the princess does not want to return because of the problematic father she has. The man gets furious at the provocation, and the system collects 118 anger points from him. He asks if the father only sees her as a tool and gains 298 points. With a cynical smile, he asks if the martial king has no shame for his actions. The man then says he can give a reward because she stayed at the boy's mansion. The protagonist then approaches and with a gesture asks for a certain amount of money for himself. The girl's father guesses 500 taels, but the boy denies it with a nod to the man. With the wrong guesses, the system collects many points and the boy confirms the final value. Annoyed, her father tells him to leave and the system collects 388 points. With a wicked smile, he then gives a big slap to the older man's face and hits him. Furious, the man orders the guards to arrest both of them, and the system collects 888 points. The groom orders them to capture the hero's brother and to deal with Jiang Bei once and for all. A powerful guard named Wu Lang from the first level of the celestial realm then advances for the fight. The older brother tells him to take the girl away while he covers their retreat from the place. The boy agrees and says her skills are not good and it would only be a danger to him. As they flee, the protagonist meets his servant Pang Hu in the courtyard of the place. He tells the servant to take the princess back to the Wuji sect to get help and escape. With a determined look, he returns to the fight and says he will save his older brother. The older brother runs from the guards who provoke him and tell him not to run from their fight. He then stops at the top of a rock and seems to be cornered by the martial king's guards. Surrounded, he thinks that when the heavens close all doors, there is no escaping danger. The guard says not even the heavens will help and prepares a powerful attack with purple energy. He then launches his void sphere, and two energy monsters advance against the brother. But Jiang Bei appears and defends him, shouting not to hurt his older brother. The older one questions him, but the boy says he would not leave him, and they would go back together. With that, the guard calls them fools and says they overestimate their skills and will not escape. The enemy then prepares a powerful red attack and says they are going to the underworld. A massive red explosion with spikes appears and the two brothers are caught in the technique. The protagonist asks if his brother is okay, and the older one confirms he did not get hurt. Suddenly, Tombs of Dirms and the hero's brother realizes the situation has gotten much worse. With his maces, he attacks the creatures and a massive energy explosion occurs at the scene. One of the three-eyed demons stares at him with a smile and the boy seems very worried. With a determined look, he focuses on the fight to try to find a way out of there. The guard orders his men to attack together to capture the older brother first. Meanwhile, Jiang Bei fights with his fire sword and complains that the fight has no end. At that, a red hand appears in a circle and the boy is startled by the new threat. His brother is captured by red energy and our hero shouts his name desperately. He then advances with his sword for the attack and says he will save him anyway. But the guard attacks him by surprise and our hero cries out in pain from the blow he received. Fallen on the ground, he sees his brother defeated and becomes desperate about their situation there. One of the guards asks if things will be okay because Diao Mao ordered him captured alive. The guard remembers the order and is annoyed by the uselessness of the prince who hired him. With that, he decides to let the brother go but warns that Jiang Bei is condemned to meet his end. The brother's body then begins to disappear and the protagonist stares at him completely shocked. He then holds his brother who disappears and screams desperately over the loss of his family. Kneeling on the ground, the boy stares at the empty clothes and calls the guards monsters. Furious, he orders the system to use all his anger points to ascend his realm. The system screen then appears next to his brother's clothes and remains silent. The system warns him the enemy is at the 3rd level and he can only reach the 4th. The hero shouts to stop chattering and says they need to try to fight with everything. The screen shows his new status and his cultivation goes up to the 2nd level of the Earth realm. The guard is surprised to see his defense was broken by the protagonist's attack. At that, his power rises rapidly and his techniques reach the peak of the 3rd level of the Earth. The enemy thinks the boy is a genius and that he absolutely cannot be left alive. With that, he prepares another strike and says his enemy is going to the underworld with the Hell's Scissors. A huge red cube appears in the sky and our hero stares at it with a serious look. With a wicked smile, he says finally the enemy's attack arrived as he expected. The boy then walks toward the prison and says that while the heavens crush him, he will fight back. With that, he activates the sky-devouring technique and a massive yellow energy ball appears. The guard is shocked and says no one below the celestial realm has escaped his gate of hell. From within the technique, several small demons appear ready to attack our hero. With a determined look, he prepares to use his powerful soul palm technique. With a strike, he shatters the enemy technique, and the guard is shocked by the counterattack. Floating, he says he will show the trash the young master's power, and mocks the technique. With a roar of fury, he advances and says he will return the attack 100 times stronger. He then fires his powerful yellow energy beam, and the enemy cries out in pain from the impact. With his body injured, he cries out in pain because his meridians are rupturing with the power. Fallen, he thinks he did not lose his movement, and that it was worth it even if he meets his end there. Suddenly, a hand holds him in the air and prevents him from falling to the ground completely powerless. An old servant then holds him in his arms and calls the young master's name worriedly. With a weak smile, he says everything is fine and that the servant arrived late for the fight. He then jokes and tells the servant to ask his father to deduct his salary and gains 3 anger points. 3 days later at the Wuji sect, his father asks worriedly how his son is feeling. The doctor informs the sect master that the young master is fine and should wake up today, but he reveals his meridians were ruptured and the boy might be incapacitated in the future. His father gets furious and the doctor says he feared he would not accept the fact and let him have fun. The boy then wakes up and throws a pillow at complaining about the noise keeping him from sleeping. His father is relieved and the boy complains they are so loud that even a deaf person would hear. His father tells him to rest and thinks not to let him hear about his ruptured meridians. With a serious look, the protagonist stops him from leaving and tells him to wait a moment. He reveals he heard everything and asks for his father's elixir, otherwise he will become unfortunate. His father hands over the elixir and thinks his ungrateful son discovered his secret treasure. With the medicine, the boy's body shines and the system congratulates him on the great transformation. The system explains the pill not only rebuilt his meridians, but also strengthened his body. With a smile on his face, he laughs and celebrates that a great calamity brings great luck. Suddenly, he cries out in pain because his external injuries have not completely healed yet. The system then warns that his injuries have not healed and he needs to rest more. In a dungeon, the protagonist's father interrogates the guard who attacked them at the king's mansion. He recognizes the sinister gate of hell technique and associates it with the underworld sect. Angrily, the man questions him about the conspiracy and what the sect has to do with all this. At that, the prisoner spits but continues to defy the sect master with a glare. The man shouts that he has no right to know and that no one will be able to escape what is coming. With a cry of "Hail the underworld," the guard throws himself backward to end his own life. He then bites his own tongue so he will not have to reveal anything else about the sect's plans. The elder despairs and says that has to do with the underworld elder at Mount Wushan. The sect master decides to go there and leaves the 2 foolish boys in the elder's care. The scene then shifts to a distant view of the mountains, and it seems something is happening. With a green aura around him, the hero's father feels things are about to change. Elsewhere, Diao Bao is warned by a mysterious figure that he only has 1 week left. The mysterious man says he needs a sacrifice of 300 cultivators for his plan. Diao Bao complains that is a lot of people and that he is afraid he will not have a chance to get them. But the man tells him to shut up and attacks him, making him disappear in a black puff of smoke. Next, Diao Mao knocks on his father's door and asks him to open it because it is the son who arrived. His father opens the door and finds it strange that he returned so early from the marriage negotiation. The boy then hugs his father and complains, crying that he was bullied by someone in the city. He tells that Jiang Bei took his bride and his beloved and even captured the leader he sent. His father is shocked that even the celestial realm expert was captured. Worried, Diao Bao approaches his son and asks if he is okay after the mess. With a wicked look, he thinks he has 7 days to find 300 cultivators and the Wuji sect has more. The man then says he will avenge his son and that now he has the perfect excuse for an expedition. With a determined look, he grips the table tightly and cracks it with his power and his anger. The princess's father wonders why his son has not returned and shouts he will annihilate the Wuji sect. Suddenly Prince Biantai arrives and his father orders him to destroy the sect to save his sister. With a confident smile the boy says he is aware of the situation and brought an elite force. He suggests an alliance with the Wind Mansion to strengthen their forces and take down the sect for good. In a quiet place we see our hero sleeping comfortably under a tree. Suddenly he wakes up and realizes his enemies are giving him a lot of anger points. With a serious look he calls for his older brother and tells him not to hide in the shadow. The brother appears and says now that he recovered it is time to exercise a little more. The older one challenges him and the boy complains that his brother is injured and cannot fight now. The older brother provokes him and says what he is doing is not swordsmanship but hammering. With a grimace our hero does not seem to want to practice with his brother and tries to avoid the fight. The older one notices and accuses him of being afraid, leaving the protagonist very annoyed. He then turns around and tells his younger brother to rest, but the boy challenges him to the fight. With a smile he says he is his brother and rules heaven and earth as an invincible one. The older one just watches him with a smile on his face and seems to be having fun with the situation. The two then fly to the sky and start training together to hone their skills. The protagonist seems to be having a lot of fun with the fight and training with his brother. Suddenly a dazed bird almost falls on his head and he complains of the lack of decency. His brother then holds him and points to something on the ground asking him to look quickly. Down below a group of people gathers and seems to be waiting for them for a fight. Biantai tells Jiang Bei to come out and says today is the day he meets his end with Diao Mao by his side. The enemies gather in front of the sect gate and the guards watch from the top of the wall. One of the guards calls them jerks and the group of invaders gets furious with the insult. With an energy strike the guard is defeated and our hero appears to save the day. With the sword on the ground he says whoever answers is guilty and stares at the enemies with a smile. He then introduces himself as Grandpa Jiang Bei and asks what the invaders need from him. Biantai accuses him of kidnapping his sister Yanlin, but the hero does not seem to understand anything. With a smile he says he actually helped her escape the wolves' den and did not kidnap her. With the provocation he gains 111 points and Diao Mao tells Biantai to end the chat. With an energy whip the prince attacks and shouts for the boy to hand his sister back. The older brother appears to help and Diao Mao orders his men to capture him quickly. The henchmen advance with their swords and axes ready to attack the hero's brother. With a wicked smile the princess's groom celebrates that the boy's brother is now his. The older one says intimidating the weak with numbers is not a true victory in fights. With a blue energy whirlwind he defeats the henchman and our hero agrees with him. Suddenly a bald man appears and starts fighting the protagonist with his purple sword. The hero calls him a pervert and says he is not afraid of him even with the weird name. With a look of anger the man calls him a little punk and the system collects more points. With a wicked smile and shining eyes the enemy prepares to attack with everything. The two then trade sword strikes in an intense fight full of power and skill. Suddenly Chenju appears and shouts he will take revenge for the humiliation he suffered in the city. The bald man says he worked very hard to increase the strength of our hero's rival. With a fire strike he attacks the protagonist and shouts that the boy will perish in that fight. Next another enemy appears and attacks with a blue energy staff to hit him, and a woman also appears and attacks him with a blue energy strike and hits him squarely. Fallen on the ground the hero warns him not to mess with him and the boy seems badly injured. The woman tells his brother to run but the boy shouts his brother's name worried about him. The older brother is captured by the guards and gets severely injured by the attacks. Furious our hero shouts for them to let his brother go and advances with his fire sword. A masked guard says he is next and gets ready to face the protagonist. The guard uses his void sphere and the hero is surprised by the enemy's powerful technique. With a smile the man praises the boy's power and says his skill is not bad at all. He then wonders if the hero can withstand his next attack and prepares another sphere. But the boy kneels and grabs the guard's leg leaving him surprised by the action. Fallen on the ground his brother shouts for him to flee, but the hero seems to have a plan in mind. With his body shining in a fire aura he shouts for his brother and seems to have a new power. Suddenly the sect's old elder appears and asks the young master to wait a moment. He explains all the enemies are from the celestial realm and he cannot defeat 3 alone. The elder then creates a protection barrier and says he will rescue the young master personally. Trapped in the barrier the protagonist shouts furiously and tells the elder to let him out to fight. He realizes the elder will not last much longer and decides he cannot go on like this. With shining eyes he says he also reached the celestial realm and that he will fight. With an energy sphere in his hand he prepares to use all his power at once. He then orders the system to consume his points but the screen warns it could be dangerous. The boy says he is not afraid and tells the system to proceed making him even stronger. The system then congratulates him and says no difficulty can defeat the host. In the blink of an eye his percentage goes up and he reaches the first stage of the celestial realm. The system hurries him and says he is almost there and the percentage increases more. Suddenly a fire skeleton appears and a man screams desperately asking for help. With a cry of pain the boy finally reaches 99% of his new power. The system then announces the first stage of the celestial realm was successfully reached. With the new evolution the protagonist gains a new skill called Full Moon Blade. With his new power he destroys the elder's protection barrier and is free to fight. The demons that tortured the disciples then turn to the boy with an evil look. With a smile, he says now everything is up to Grandpa Jiangbei and prepares to attack. He then uses his new full moon blade skill and a large fire slash appears. The disciples celebrate that the second young master repelled all the dark spirits. The guards are shocked to see the boy advance to the celestial realm in the middle of the fight. He challenges them to fight him, and the system collects many anger points from the three. One of the guards advises him not to be ignorant, and the three advance to attack him together. With a smile, he says he will show who the truly ignorant one is, and the fight begins. The guards are surprised by the powerful combat skill the protagonist acquired. With a serious look, the leader says they can only use that together to defeat him. The hero dodges the attacks from the guards, who move with impressive speed. The red cube prison appears again, and the boy wonders if they will use the same technique. But with a smile, he says he is no longer afraid and advances with his fire sword. With a powerful strike, he destroys the technique and shouts that everyone will meet their end by his hands. Suddenly, he feels a strange presence behind him and turns around, startled by the danger. A Reaper figure with a red aura appears and stares at him with a deadly and somber look. The boy is terrified of the new threat and screams in fear seeing the Reaper approaching. With red and vein-filled eyes, the boy gives into a dark and dangerous aura. He cries out in pain from the power, and a strong red energy explodes from his body with full force. The elder realizes the young master is falling into darkness, and his brother shouts desperately. With a wicked smile, he says now is hunting time and prepares to attack his enemies. The guards are startled by the new power, and the leader orders them to retreat quickly from there. But the protagonist says they have nowhere to escape and stares at them with a threatening look. With a strike of red and black energy, he attacks the guards with incredible speed. The other enemies panic and say they will be next if they do not flee from there. The hero turns to them and with a wicked smile tells them not to worry about anything. With an insane look, he guarantees that none of them will be able to escape that place alive. Suddenly, the brother and the elder feel a strong pressure and look very worried about him. The boy then attacks his own brother and holds him by the neck with a frightening force. His brother cries out in pain from the attack, and the elder despairs at the scene he is seeing. With a wicked smile, he tells his brother to perish and prepares to end his life. Suddenly, a mysterious voice tells him to stop, and he seems to come to his senses for a moment. With a headache, the boy falls to the ground, and the brother and elder run to help him. The two call his name worriedly, and he seems to be fighting against the dark power. In his mind, he wonders where he is and is surprised to see a chained woman. He finds the woman familiar but feels a strange closeness to her and does not understand. The woman then turns around and calls him by his name, leaving our protagonist shocked. Startled, he wonders how she sees him and how she knows his name without ever having seen him. With a smile, she says he will find out soon, and the boy gets even more confused. A memory then appears, and he sees himself in a room with his parents and his brother still a baby. The mother tells the older brother to grow up fast to protect our protagonist, but the father throws the baby in the air and says the boy also needs to grow up to protect his mother. The mother tells the father to put the son down, and the hero thinks having that father is a blessing. The scene then returns to the chained woman, and he watches her with a shocked look. With tears in his eyes, he asks if she is his mother and says he did not expect that. He then wonders if he is the son of a witch, and the woman looks at him with a sad expression. She says he will know in the future, and the boy cries out for his mother while falling into a dark abyss. The woman says someone is waiting for him and he should go outside. The princess cries and wonders if they are destined to be separated in that life. Suddenly, the boy wakes up in a coffin and wonders where he is and what happened. The disciples celebrate that the young master is alive again, and he does not understand anything. With a confused look, he then spots his older brother and calls him with a weak voice. Everyone hugs him relieved, and the princess calls his name with a smile of happiness. Lying on the grass, he wonders if his mother is trapped in the demonic realm, and the system alerts him. Annoyed, he tells the system to disappear and says he does not want to hear about it for now. He gets up and says he is fine, does not want to think about the demonic realm because it gives him a headache. The boy says they insisted he come to the mountain to recover with the herbs. He gets excited about the idea of spiritual herbs and thinks about selling them as incense. With a smile, he says they cannot sleep and they will make a great fortune. Suddenly, he is surprised by something, and his chibi face shows an expression of shock. A girl with fox ears appears and asks who he is and calls him older brother. He remembers the system mentioned it would change form with the advancement of his realm. With that, he concludes since he advanced to the celestial realm, her small form also upgraded. The system girl hits him annoyed and asks if he finally understood the situation. With crossed arms, she asks him to be gentle with her in the future, because now she is a girl. He pinches her cheeks and says he might treat her better if she calls him older brother. The girl refuses and says if she recognizes him as a brother, how will she survive in the system world? With a wicked smile, he threatens her, and the system girl says if he dares, she will not help him anymore. The boy remembers he still needs to make money with the spiritual herbs and changes his mind. With a fake smile, he says he was joking and she is so kind she would not mind. The girl says she will forgive his recklessness, and the protagonist wonders if she is its sunder. He then asks the omnipotent system to turn the herbs into 21st century cigarettes. The system girl agrees, and with a hand movement she prepares to use her powers. With her eyes closed and a blue energy, she concentrates to fulfill the boy's request. Suddenly, several rolls of cigarettes appear and the protagonist praises her skill. With a smile, he celebrates that this time he will manage to make a great fortune. The scene then shifts to the Wuji sect's pill pavilion, a large imposing building. In the pill pavilion, Elder Lee was taking a quiet nap at his work desk. Suddenly he wakes up startled when someone shouts his name, pulling him from his rest. Jiang Bei then arrives and says he brought something good, thinking of tricking him to get money. At that, the elder remembers when the boy destroyed the treasure pavilion and fears being next. The system collects 180 anger points and the hero asks what the old man was thinking. At that moment, the older brother arrives and asks if the boy went there to get medicinal herbs. The protagonist then offers his new spiritual smoke for his brother to try the novelty. With it, he tells his older brother not to worry and tells him to light the herb cigarette. The older one then takes a puff and seems to enjoy the flavor with an expression of pleasure. His eyes then widen in surprise as he feels the effects of the powerful spiritual item. Suddenly, he sees himself in a fairland full of dolphins and rabbits, feeling full of power. With a strong energy aura, the hero's brother has a breakthrough, and the elder wonders if he was promoted. The old man praises the invention, but Jiang Bei confesses he just wanted to trick him to take his money. The brother praises him for planning the sect's future, and the elder asks if he will contribute the formula. Embarrassed, the boy throws the formula at them and tells them to develop it themselves however they want. The protagonist is sad about his shattered dreams, but his brother says he will be the pride of the sect. Elsewhere, Diao Mao's father feels his right eye twitch and has a bad feeling. His subordinate then says that coincidentally his right eye is also twitching a lot. Suddenly, Diao Mao runs into the place and calls desperately for his father to help him. He hugs his father crying and asks for help, but the older man tells him to behave and speak properly. Diao Mao then says that Jiang Bei wiped out all the men he took and his father is shocked. The man swears he will not be human if he does not pay the debt, and the boy says he is there to help. Furious, Diao Mao's father orders the great master Daoyang to be summoned to eradicate the Wuji sect. Meanwhile, Jiang Bei's father faces a seal and a voice asks if he can suppress her again. The sect master says he sealed her before and is not afraid of her now that he is stronger than before. The voice then asks if he forgot about the woman and the price he paid to seal her. With a sad look, the protagonist's father seems to remember the sacrifice he had to make. He then thinks his sons must protect the sect and they must survive at any cost. Far away, an army approaches and the leader introduces himself as Daoyang, Diao Bao's brother. Beside him, an elite guard greets him and prepares for the great attack against the sect. The great master then turns and reminds his ally not to forget the conditions of their agreement. The mysterious figure says to revive the ghost elder they need the sacrifice of 300 practitioners. With a smile, the hooded person promises that besides everything he can help him control the country of wind. He also says he could make him the ruler of an entire continent if he accepts the proposal. With a smile, the mysterious figure asks what he thinks and Diao Mao's father seems quite excited. The great master says it is natural and if the Wuji sect dares to provoke them they are already dead. Meanwhile, at the sect, our hero puffed on his herb cigarette and seemed to think of something serious. The system girl is surprised by the anger spike and wonders if they are planning another attack. Jiang Bei thinks last time he barely managed to defeat 3 figures and now it will be harder. He asks the system girl how many points are left for the second stage and she says 12,000. The boy gets discouraged, but the girl says not to worry because at the peak of the celestial realm there will be benefits. Curious, he asks what a foundation acupoint is and the system girl says she will teach him. She explains there are martial and cultivation realms and the martial one is divided into 4 levels. The girl continues the explanation and says after the celestial realm, he will ascend to the cultivation realm. She talks about the known realms and the boy is shocked by the variations and wonders why his father did not teach him. With his hand raised, he then asks what exists above the sovereign realm to the system girl. With a mysterious smile on her face, the system girl says that is a good question, but to the boy's surprise, she reveals the answer is that absolutely no one knows. He asks why and she explains there are no records of anyone who has reached immortality. With an alluring look, she then says maybe he will be the first to succeed and that she believes in him. With a thoughtful look, the protagonist wonders if he can truly achieve immortality. Suddenly, the princess appears and greets him, but he says he woke up because he needed to use the bathroom. The system calls him shameless and the princess offers the breakfast she made for him. With a smile, he tells her to eat first and that he needs to leave for a while, leaving the lady confused. He remembers Diao Bao's reinforcements are coming and runs to prepare the disciples, but upon arriving he realizes it is already too late as the battle at the sect had already begun. From afar, Diao Mao spots Jiang Bei arriving at the scene and warns his brother about the enemy. The boy finds an injured disciple and tells him to notify his brother and Master Du of his arrival. With a serious look, he gets up and says the guests have arrived and the disciple runs to warn them. The elite guard then points to the hero and demands that he release Bai and Tai that very instant. With a dark look, our hero begins to give a warning to the enemies who are there. He then tells them to release him or else not to blame him for being impolite to them. The red-haired guard gets annoyed and accuses him of stealing his lines, ordering the men to attack him. With a determined look, the protagonist seems to be getting ready for the great fight that will come. He makes a face and calls the enemies jerks, challenging them to a fight right there. Suddenly, Master Du and his brother appear and tell him not to be afraid because they are there. The older brother then appears with a powerful attack and says he is there to help the boy. With a smug smile, the hero says his past appearance no longer counts for anything. He says he now has the help of his team and that the real game will truly begin. With his sword he advances against the guards and dodges all strikes with ease. The boy continues to move with impressive speed and shouts that they are too slow. From afar the great master watches everything with anger and says he is arrogant to the point of despising everyone. With a purple energy aura the man says he will face him personally to end the fight. He then prepares to use one of his secret techniques and an evil power arises. The protagonist also prepares for the attack and a strong golden energy shines in his hands. The two powers then collide and a massive energy explosion occurs in the middle of the battle. The great master stares at the result of the explosion with an expression of surprise on his face. Through the smoke he is shocked to see the boy manage to block his powerful heaven bullet. With a wicked smile the man says the boy underestimated him and tells him to taste his new power. He then uses his powerful whirlwind palm and a large purple energy strike advances. The attack advances against our hero, who seems to be standing still unable to move in time. But with a smile the boy dodges the blow and asks the enemy if he missed by any chance. He then provokes the great master and says the old man's vision is very bad and he is useless. Furious the man tells the boy not to be arrogant and says that is his powerful palm strike. The protagonist is confused by the enemy's warning and does not understand what is happening. The great master explains the technique's greatest power is released when it attacks back. The purple energy then turns around and goes back toward our hero to attack him by surprise. With a terrified look he sees the huge energy hand approaching and shouts to dodge. Suddenly the princess appears and pushes him away to save him from the enemy's attack. With that she is hit squarely by the blow and the boy shouts her name, desperately at the scene. Fallen on the ground the princess seems badly injured after having sacrificed herself for our hero. The great master warns him he will not be lucky next time, and the boy runs to help the young woman. With a determined look Master Du decides to enter the fight and says he will help his disciple. But the red-haired guard stops him and asks where the old man thinks he can escape. With a wicked smile the enemy says that from that moment on his opponent would be him. The man then uses the gate of hell and Master Du recognizes him as a member of the underworld. With his technique he summons green skeletons and the master admits he underestimated his enemy. The guard then says he will end it quickly and prepares the fourth move of the gate of hell. Surrounded by skeleton hands the master realizes the situation is not good at all on his side. Having no other choice he then decides he will fight with everything and prepares for the counterattack. With it he summons a fire dragon and uses his powerful divine flame dragon punishment. The guard is shocked to see the old man risking everything to break his foundation point. Desperate the man shouts he refuses to accept that and tries to defend against the powerful blow. With the force of the attack the enemy flies far away and our hero watches the scene completely shocked. Fallen on the ground and in flames the master says that even with his end he has no regrets. Jiang Bei screams desperately and runs to try to hold his master's falling body. He manages to hold him but the old man just asks the reason for all of that before passing away. With the pain of losing everyone he remembers the princess, his brother and his entire injured sect. Grabbing his head in pain a strong red and evil aura begins to emerge from his body. His eyes shine with hatred and he shouts asking why they always provoke his sect. With a new form he swears he will end the enemy and the great master is surprised by the change. An evil entity appears and mocks the great master for thinking he can defeat the boy. The hero feels pain and sees a dark version of himself and shouts for the thing to leave immediately. The evil entity just stares at him with a smile and seems to have a lot of fun with the situation. With a domain of red energy the evil figure asks if he really wants to know who he is. With a scary smile he reveals himself as a noble member of the powerful demon spirit clan. He then explains he's what humans usually call our hero's inner demon. The creature says it can give him infinite power but the boy refuses to believe it. With a mocking smile the demon questions if he really is so sure of that. The creature reminds him of when he was possessed and the hero wonders if it was the spirit's fault. The creature reveals his mother left a trace of her soul in his heart to wake him up from danger. With this the boy realizes what he saw was not a dream and that his mother was truly there. The demon then tells him to look at the enemy who is a 5th level celestial expert. With a smile it asks if the boy thinks that with his current strength he can defeat the enemy. The spirit reminds him of everyone who got hurt for him and tells him to think of how many people he hurt. With a look of pain the protagonist realizes that his inner demon is absolutely right. He then clenches his fist tightly and wonders if he truly is a good for nothing like the creature says. The demon celebrates seeing its words are working and that the boy is losing himself. With an evil look the creature tells him to slowly lose himself and hand over his body to it. With a glint in his eyes our hero seems to be fighting against the inner demon's control. With a wicked smile the spirit celebrates that finally that body is now solely his. But suddenly the protagonist lands a punch on his own face and hits the demon with full force. With the force of the blow the creature is thrown far away and the boy seems to have regained control. He then says the demon is knave and that for parasitizing his body he should call him father. Furious at the boy's audacity the spirit turns into a threatening red monster. With a mouth full of teeth the demon shouts that it will end our hero once and for all. But Jiang Bei attacks it with a golden strike and says the monster is just his shadow and nothing more. With an intense glow the golden energy attack hits the evil creature squarely and defeats it. The demon then returns to its original form and the hero is surprised to see it is a small creature. With an angry face the small demon says it finds all of that very fun and mocks him. The protagonist then holds it and asks if it has ever seen a father afraid of his own son. He threatens it for not respecting him and with that the system collects 898 anger points. Suddenly, the system girl appears with a weapon and says a parasite was found in his body. The demon is startled by the artifact and the girl calls it ignorant for not knowing the weapon. She then asks if it recognizes him as its father, but the demon says it prefers its end to that. The girl shoots it and says it is unforgivable to go against the host, and the demon begs for forgiveness. Fallen on the ground, the small demon says it will no longer challenge its master's authority. But in its thoughts it insults Jiang Bei and swears it will take revenge when it gets a chance. With that, the system collects many anger points and the hero calls it a smelly, cowardly brat. The girl warns the parasite was captured and the demon says the master would not hurt it for being obedient. With a mocking smile, the protagonist asks the demon if it would not prefer its end to yielding. The small demon hides behind the system girl and says giving it a little is acceptable. With the system collecting more points, he thinks that now with her help Jiang Bei has a bright future. It then imagines itself living a life of luxury next to its new father and the system girl. The creature says it is happy to serve its father and work like a horse and a dog for him. The boy thinks the small demon acts like a grandson but must have cursed him several times. At that, he realizes the creature is a walking ATM of anger points for him. With a wicked smile, he thinks that in danger he can make it activate the cheats at any time. The protagonist then names it his Herr Jiang Xiaobai and the system collects more points. Our hero steps on the demon's head and sends it to a killing competition with its father. Back to the fight, the great master notices he got stronger and has an aura of darkness. With a serious look, the enemy wonders who exactly that boy he is facing is. The great master then prepares for the fight and tells the boy to taste his new move. With that, he uses his powerful four symbols gathering Q technique to attack him. With a confident smile on his face, our hero seems unintimidated by the new strike. He then uses his full moon blade that fills the sky and a great golden power emerges. The great master's technique is destroyed by the blow, and the energy elephant dissipates in the air. Shocked by what happened, the enemy shouts and cannot believe the boy's power. His brother is shocked to see he interrupted the supreme attack of the celestial boundary perfection. The protagonist then advances against the enemy and says it is now his turn to attack with everything. With a swift blow, he creates a cloud of smoke, and the great master tries to defend from the attack. The princess watches the fight with a worried look and seems to want to say something important. With a smile, he appears behind the enemy and says that palm is his final retaliation. The young woman then stares at him with a smile on her face and seems totally relieved by the result. He then faces the enemies and asks Diao Mao why he does not surrender once and for all. Diao Mao says his army is not made of cowardly rats and swears to fight until the end of the battle. But turning around, he realizes all his soldiers vanished and left him alone there. Shocked, he shouts furiously and cannot believe all his men ran away and abandoned him. Diao Mao then runs away and a disciple asks the young master if they should chase him. With a serious look on his face, our hero says there is no need to chase them. The older brother takes care of the injured elder Du and says saving him is the priority now. With a slight smile on his lips, the protagonist seems about to say something else. But he passes out from exhaustion and says he cannot take it anymore because he has no strength to fight. Elsewhere, Diao cries to his father about Jiang Bei and the hooded man watches everything. The mysterious figure reminds him of the blood sacrifice and says he must explain himself to the Lord. With a serious look, the hooded man observes the night and seems to plan his next step. He warns that in 3 days on the moonless night they must go to the Wushan nest to help the Lord. The scene then shifts to Elder Du's residence in the Wuji sect where he is recovering. Our hero is shocked to see the old man's arteries were cut and that only one remains. The other elders and his brother do not know what to do and say they have no good solution. He asks the pill elder, but the old man says only Master Zhang can help now. The brother reveals their father came from the legendary Endless Sea, and the boy understands nothing. Elder Lu says when he meets the master, the old man will explain everything that happened. The protagonist asks where his father is and Elder Du reveals he is in the Wushan nest. The old man tells that the nest is a forbidden place in Lian City to suppress the underworld lord. In a memory, we see their father went there, deducing the attacks had to do with the underworld. With that, the older brother says there is no time to lose and they must go immediately. But with a surprise strike, our hero hits him from behind and apologizes to his brother. He says his brother is injured and asks an elder to take care of him, and the older one agrees right away. The boy swears he will help his father suppress the underworld and will bring him back to save him. The scene then changes to the great Wushan nest during the night with a very evil aura. An evil voice mocks Master Jiang and says the moonless night has finally arrived for him. The protagonist's father uses his power and a strong blue energy appears to keep the seal intact. With a worried look, he seems to be in trouble trying to maintain the seal of the place. Suddenly the chains break and the evil voice celebrates that the seal finally ruptured. With a sad look, the sect master wonders if the underworld finally managed to emerge. At that, Jiang Bei arrives and says he is there to help and asks if his father was moved by it. With a smug smile and a rose in hand, he strikes a funny pose for his father. His father gets furious with his son and the system collects 233 anger points. The boy complains that if it were not for Du's injury, he would not have gone to that horrible place. His father is shocked to learn Elder Du is injured and gets very worried about the news. A mysterious hand then appears and seems to want to interrupt the moment between father and son. The enemies arrive and the hooded man says he did not want to disturb their filial piety. The boy's father accuses him of conspiring with dark spirits and asks if they are human. Diao Mao's father says he only associates with the strong and does not care about the rest. Suddenly some red talismans appear floating in the air ready to be used. With the talismans, a strong blue energy emerges and a powerful creature is summoned to the spot. The creature's eyes shine and we discover he is the demon lord of the 5th level of the underworld. The creature celebrates its lord's arrival and seems quite excited by the summoning they did. The lord asks about the 300 cultivators and the hooded man says there was a setback. He blames our hero for having failed twice and the boy seems to have fun with the situation. With that, the lord says in that case, they will have to pay with their own lives for the failure. The hooded man points to Jiang Bei and says he is practically at his end right there now. But suddenly the lord grabs Diao Mao's neck and leaves him surprised by the attack. With a powerful strike he attacks both at the same time and leaves them injured and shocked. The hooded man shouts and asks what he is doing because they are his allies, but the creature says it does not know what kalis means and stares at them with a smile. It then says the weak only serve as food for the strong and laughs at the situation. Our hero watches the scene and complains that little bit of blood is not even enough to use as dental floss. The creature says it will operate on Jiang Wangwen's son next and advances for the attack. The boy realizes the opponent's strength surpasses his and decides he needs to outsmart him. The lord calls him arrogant and dumb and the system collects 2,024 anger points. Furious, the lord shouts that the brat is asking for a tragic end and threatens him with a glare. The hooded man asks why he has not yet finished off our protagonist's father. The father and son then join forces to fight the demon lord in an epic battle. The mysterious figure says he will deal with someone later and seems to have a plan in mind. Suddenly another hooded figure advances and attacks our hero's father with a precise strike. The two enemies advance together and shout that he will meet his end in that fight. The boy's father is surprised and seems to recognize one of the attackers who appeared out of nowhere. He holds her and asks who she is in the ruins of the underworld and stares at her with a serious look. The white-haired woman laughs and says it is rare for Master Jing to still remember her father. The hero's father attacks with a fire blade and shouts that he could never forget. In a memory, he sees himself trapped and weak while his wife and son were taken by force. The woman attacks with the underworld king's claw and insults him because his beloved is from a demon clan. The sect master blocks the blow and retorts that even so it was this alchemist who defeated her. In another memory, the younger version of the enemy stares at him with a look of pure hatred. She then shouts for him to shut up and says she will never forget the disgrace he brought her. The man argues that if one obeyed the marriage alliance, everyone could be happy. He questions why she has to suffer, and the woman attacks him again with a furious look. The enemy blames him for everything and tells him to repent for his acts with the end of his life. With that, she uses the underworld king's eternal path and summons a powerful entity. Jiang Bei's father notices she made great progress with the evil technique she used. With a smirk, he seems to underestimate his former ally's power. He then summons a fire dragon and says her blow is not worth a single breath of his. The woman cries out in pain as she is hit squarely by the master's powerful flame attack. With the sword at her neck, the sect master demands to know where his beloved Wan is, but the enemy refuses to tell and says even if she meets her end, she will not reveal anything. She then starts laughing maniacally and seems to be preparing some final trick. The sect master notices her intention and prepares for what is to come in the fight. He says she will never see her again and the enemy dissipates into an energy explosion. Suddenly, the demon lord is hit by an energy beam and complains of pain from the blow. The lord seems quite annoyed to have been hit in the middle of the battle unexpectedly. Our hero then takes the chance to mock the enemy and calls him a joke for getting hit. With a series of fire punches, the protagonist attacks the demon lord without stopping for a second. He provokes him, saying he will send him to the stars for not paying attention to the fight. Furious, the lord gets up and says that after all the fighting, he finally made him angry. The lord says time is running out and asks if the boy knows why he revealed himself. Jiang Bei says he is not his father to know, and the system collects 520 anger points. The protagonist then prepares his hand for another of his powerful fire attacks. He shouts that he does not want to know anything and that he will end his life while he is sick. With his flaming sword, the hero blocks the blow and wonders if that is a formation. He then realizes the being is from the underworld clan that hides in the shadows to attack. The demon lord stumps the ground hard and says the darkness gives him even more power. With a worried expression on his face, the boy seems very tense with the new situation. The lord transforms and says the moonless night makes him even stronger and more powerful than before. With a wicked smile and glowing eyes, he stares at his enemies ready for the great fight. He vows to avenge the ceiling and says today will be the end of the master and his son once and for all. A massive green energy explosion occurs and a dense smoke covers the entire battlefield. In the midst of the smoke, the protagonist despairs because he cannot see absolutely anything. He then calls for his father in the midst of the darkness but cannot get any response. With a confused look, the youth wonders why his father cannot hear him calling for him. Suddenly, the system girl appears and he asks her to disperse the black mist for him. But she says she cannot because the power difference is small and she lacks the ability. Annoyed, he yells at her and asks what she is good for while shadowy hands surround him. With a scream of panic, the boy is terrified by the creatures emerging from the darkness. He then uses a light power to push the shadows away and complains that all of it is too gross. Seeing some branches on the ground, he wonders if all of that is nothing but a grand illusion. Suddenly, one of the creatures grabs him, and he despairs, seeing he has no way to escape. An army of demon lord clones appears, and he wonders if the enemy is playing in a group. He then tries to calm down and says he is not afraid because it is only an illusion. but the creatures attack him and throw him far away, proving the danger is very real to him. Fallen and injured, he realizes it is real, and the Lord says it is not an illusion but his avatars. With that, he uses the sky-devouring demon technique, and the Lord insults him furiously. The system collects many anger points and his shield absorbs the energy of all the clones, but he realizes the avatars can reproduce endlessly and that it will not do any good. Trapped in his own protection barrier, he complains that he cannot get out no matter what. He then tries to calm down and thinks there must be some loophole to escape from there. Suddenly he remembers the moonless night and gets an idea, thinking there is no moon in the sky. With a confident smile, he then uses his powerful full moon blade skill to attack. With an artificial moon, he points at the enemy and asks with a smile if there was no moon. He then shouts that he will create a moon for them, and his power undoes the enemy's clones. With the mist dissipating, he spots his father and shouts his name to call him. The boy's eyes widen in surprise at the totally unexpected scene he sees. Suddenly his own father attacks him and hits him squarely in the chest with a sword. The figure then reveals itself and with a wicked smile seems to enjoy the confusion. The demon lord mocks and asks if he managed to snap out of the illusion so quickly. With a sword in hand, he advances against Jiangbei and his father in a great battle. Furious, our hero calls him a scoundrel and prepares for the attack with intense anger. He accuses him of posing as him to attack his father and advances with his fire sword. The Lord says he does not care and that the old immortal went running to help his son. With a look of hatred, the demon lord stares at the protagonist ready for the fight. He's then surprised to see his hand froze with our hero's attack. The two trade sword strikes and the Lord is shocked that his skills nullify his. With a powerful strike, the enemy throws him away and calls him overrated in the fight. The Lord says even if his skills nullify his, it does not matter to the outcome. He then tells the boy to accept his fate and attacks him with a powerful and precise punch. The protagonist uses the spring demon technique and the Lord calls him overrated. He yells for the system girl to level up and she says she is almost there for the breakthrough. The Lord wonders how the boy's strength increases and if he wants to become a god. The system screen then shows he consumed his points and rose to the 4th level. The system warns that the anger balance is 0 and he can no longer continue the promotion. The girl then warns him that with the points he can only be upgraded to the 4th level. The Lord wonders why his power stopped rising and attacks him with an energy strike. With his sword he tries to defend, but the enemy's blow is much stronger than his. Fallen on the ground and injured, the system girl shouts, worried about the boy's condition. The demon lord advances for the final attack and orders him to face his end once and for all. With a snap of fingers, a mysterious force seems to be acting on the battlefield. Suddenly the Lord stops his attack and seems to be controlled by something else. The small demon and the system girl appear to help the injured boy. With a scary look, she tells the demon to help and immediately agrees out of fear. The demon says it will take care of the boy's body, and the protagonist tells it not to try any tricks. The creature then possesses Jiangbei's body, and a strong red aura emerges around him. It says it can also help the father break through the celestial realm, and the two join the fight. The demon lord is surprised by the combined attack and cries out in pain from the blow's impact. With the force of the attack, the enemy is thrown away and seems badly injured by the new technique. The possessed body faces the enemy and wonders what kind of monster that boy is. With a determined look, the Lord seems to be preparing to use all his power. With the full moon blade, the demon attacks and a powerful red energy slash advances. It mocks the Lord for being low level and brags about its superior power in the battle. Suddenly, the protagonist slaps his own face and seems to be fighting against the control. He screams and asks what it is doing, and the system collects 2019 more anger points. The system girl hurries him and tells him to return the body to save his grandfather once and for all. From the outside, his father only sees him fighting alone in the air and wonders what is happening. He then shouts and asks why his son does not help him, and the boy says he is already there. The protagonist mocks his father and the man threatens him with punishment for the bad joke. From afar, Diao Mao's father swears to take revenge on Jiangbei and says he must wait for him. The boy complains his father is heavy as a pig and the older man orders someone to put him down. He then asks for help to carry his father inside, and the disciples help him with the master. He finds his father watering flowers and scolds him for being at leisure at a time like that. The boy drags him away and says old Du is waiting for him to save him from meeting his end. The two sons then gather with their father to find out how old Du is feeling. Their father reveals he can be treated, but the herb can only be found in the endless sea. The sons then ask about their father's past and why they have not seen their mother for years. With a sip of his drink, the man says that story began 25 years ago. He says he was an alchemist and while gathering herbs saved a witch from the demon sect. In a memory, the woman wakes up with the smell of food and seems quite confused by the situation. With a knife in hand, she threatens him and asks who he is and what he is doing there. He introduces himself as an alchemist and says he saved her from an injury finding her in the stream. With a bandaged leg, the woman realizes he is not lying and seems to lower her guard. With a smile, she thinks someone who cooks so well cannot be a bad person and eats. He asks how she got hurt and the woman reveals she is still the saint of the demon sect. The boy's father is shocked by the revelation and the woman laughs because he got scared of her. She says she ran away to avoid getting married and that is why she was chased by her father's men. With a smile, she says now that he saved her, he has become a thorn to her father. She then approaches him and warns him not to even think about abandoning her after everything. The sectmaster stares at her with a flushed face and seems completely enchanted by the woman. He says they got together, but he did not expect them to capture the mother and the two sons. Her groom accuses her of running away with him, but the sect master demands he let her go right away. The man challenges him to a fight and tells him to show what he is made of so they can talk. In the end, he defeated him, and the groom was shocked to have lost to the so-called sect genius. But even so, he could not save the mother and only rescued the two sons, risking his life. He then had to take them to another continent for safety and swore to return for his beloved. But the underworld lord followed them, and he used half his cultivation to seal him in the nest. He finishes the story and says after that he lived on the Starfall continent and watched them grow. The father says he knows it is hard to accept the mother is from the demonic race and tries to comfort him. But the boy is shocked to be the son of a demonic clan saint and does not believe it. With a smile, he celebrates that he is a legitimate heir and says he will recognize her as mother. The father then hugs him and says they will rescue his mother immediately after everything. Old Du cries and asks what will happen to him now that everyone is leaving for the mission. The protagonist comforts him and promises that in 3 years they will return with the medicine to save him. The old man cries at the promise and says he was deeply moved by the boy's attitude. The older brother then says before they leave there is still one thing to be resolved. With a wicked smile on his face, our hero seems to have a plan in mind for something. At the Wuji sect, banners with training and competition slogans are hung everywhere. With a megaphone, the boy asks the disciples if they know why the king attacked the sect. The disciples guess if it is for treasures or boredom, but our hero denies everything immediately. He then points to some of them and says the blame for everything lies solely with a few there. Pointing his finger at his father, he also includes him, and the man is shocked by the accusation. He then calls them trash and says everyone present is a good for nothing to the sect. With it, the system collects many anger points and his father calls them traitors. He then says he is willing to lead his disciples out of that problem. The disciples then understand that the reason they were provoked is their lack of strength. The boy shouts that King Wen treats them as easy targets and asks what they should do. The disciples then shout they must make him pay and that they need to defeat him for good. With a smile, he says that his young master, he created a training regimen for them. He then announces the 3 years of competitions and 5 years of simulations for the sect. The boy explains that every 3 years external disciples can be promoted to internal. He continues and says whoever fails the evaluation will repeat, and if they fail again will be expelled. With that, he warns the mock evaluations will be once a month to encourage everyone. He then shouts for everyone to train to their limit and face their end boldly. With a wicked smile, he thinks that when they get caught in the rain, he will tear their umbrellas. His father and brother scold him, but he says he is considering the sect's plans. A disciple informs him that Miss Yanlan is leaving and that he should go see her. He then runs to her room and asks if she is truly leaving the sect. The young woman explains she only stayed there to escape the marriage and now has no more reasons. He then grabs her by the arm and asks if she thinks the Wuji sect owes her a life. With tears in her eyes, she says she did not want to bother him anymore, and the boy asks what happened. The young lady says her father was arrested while trying to file a complaint against King Wen in the capital. He then says in a few days they will go to the Endless Sea and will pass through the capital. With a smile, he pulls her and says they will go together so they can rescue her father. With tear-filled eyes, the princess thanks our hero for the help he offered. She then remembers her luggage, but the boy hands it to her with a smile on his face. The older brother questions why he will help someone he did not like before. With a smile, he asks if he should not support a child who saw the error of her ways. His brother asks if it is true, and the boy blushes and says of course what he said is true. He then changes the subject and tells his brother not to be nosy and walks away embarrassed. The protagonist thinks now that he realized destiny is in his hands, he cannot let her go. In the capital's prison, the princess's father is informed the letter was delivered, and she will come. The man rejoices knowing Jiang Bei is also willing to help rescue him. With a smile, he thinks it is ironic that in the end someone from the Wuji sect will save him. 10 days earlier in court, the princess's father accuses King Wen of conspiring with dark spirits. Emperor Long Xiaoshan is interested in the accusation, and the crown prince watches everything. The man says Diao Bao used elixirs to create half-human beings and he will not tolerate it. But King Wen accuses him of conspiring with Jiang Bei to harm the master, and the other denies it all. The man says the evidence is his brother's and son's lives and asks if he would do the same. The king then turns to the emperor and asks what he has to say about the accusations. The emperor remains silent and seems to be thinking about whose side he should believe. He thinks that was orchestrated by King Wen and that accusing him could cause a coup. The crown prince then says Jiang Bei is despicable and that he finished off his master. The emperor then decides to believe King Wen, and the man thanks the emperor for his trust. With that, he orders the princess's father arrested, and the man shouts he was wronged there. The emperor orders the prince to take guards and annihilate the Wuji sect to avenge his master. The scene then shifts to the crown prince and King Wen riding together with their army. King Wen points to a carriage and tells the prince the so-called Jiang Bei is inside. The prince stares at him and says he did not look for him, but even so he came to him. With a confused look, our hero then asks the young man who he is and what he wants. The prince is shocked he does not recognize him, and the system collects 666 points. He then takes a fan and begins to brag about being the crown prince and loved by everyone. Striking a pose, he introduces himself as Longoshan and expects our hero to recognize him. Jiang Bei stares at him with an expression of disinterest and seems not to care about the prince. Annoyed, the prince throws the fan at him and asks what he is if the other is the protagonist. Suddenly he runs away and his servant shouts that the crown prince fled from the battle. The hero approaches Diao Bao and says this time there is no one to protect him there. With an energy strike, the protagonist attacks Diao Bao and a massive explosion happens. A guard accuses him of disrespecting the law and the system collects 379 points. From behind a curtain, our hero's father asks Xiaoshan to calm down and not get worked up. He says they are only there to take Diao Bao back, and the prince questions him for his boldness. The older man asks if he does not remember him and says he even held him when he was a child. He continues and says he even gave him a dog, but the boy interrupts him before he speaks. Furious, the prince shouts for him to stop, and the system collects 618 anger points. Furious, the prince says he was insulted and orders the guards to arrest father and son Jiang. The hero's father then questions him and asks what he is doing with that attitude. Suddenly, a white-haired woman appears and the prince is shocked, calling her grandmother. The woman reminds the prince of who helped him to the throne and told him to protect the nation. Furious at his attitude, the woman then gives him a heavy slap right on the face. She explains she came out early to see him act arrogantly in front of his benefactor. The prince is shocked by the word benefactor and does not understand anything that happened. With that, he remembers what the hero's father said earlier and wonders if that was true. The woman then greets the hero's father and says he looks as young as before. She thanks him for passing secret techniques to her and helping her ascend the throne. Our hero realizes the two get along well and it will be easy to save Yanlan's father. With a smile, he calls the Empress Sister Ditian in a very funny way. She scolds him for arresting his friend's father, and the system collects 299 points. He defends himself and says King Wen informed him Zhang Bei and the sect conspired for everything. Zhang Bei then kicks King Wen and demands he explain if the martial emperor conspired with him. The prince panics because he heard the Empress has a ruthless way of dealing with things. Fallen on the ground, King Wen realizes the relationship is deep and there is no going back. He confesses the conspiracy with the spirits and begs forgiveness for his years of service. Desperate, the man hugs the Empress's leg and begs her to forgive him, but she says his crime is unforgivable and attacks him with an energy beam, putting an end to him. The Empress then thanks the hero's father for helping rid them of the dark spirits. She offers to entertain them, but the older man explains they only went there to save the emperor. With that, the Empress orders them to bring the martial emperor, and the beautiful Yanlan finally appears. The young woman then stares at her father and asks why he did not look for her before all of that. Her father apologizes and says he should not have disregarded her wishes and arranged the marriage. She says she blamed her father, but now that Diao Mao is gone, she does not even know where to begin blaming. Her father cries, asking if she forgave him, and with a positive response, he gets emotional. Zhang Bei complains their reunion is ruining the mood and gets annoyed by the man's crying. With that, the system collects 698 anger points, and the girl tries to calm him down. The boy then brags that his daughter is his, and her father panics at the thought of being his father-in-law. The older brother says now that they rescued the people, it is time for them to leave for the Endless Sea. The princess's father seems surprised by the mention of the Endless Sea and stares at them confused. With a shout, he tells everyone to wait, and our hero wonders what happened. The man asks if Zhang Bei can take Yanlan, but the boy says the journey is dangerous. At that, he reveals he will hide it no more and says the girl has a weak water physique. Everyone is shocked by the revelation, and the martial emperor confirms it is true to them. He explains her mother came from the Endless Sea, and every 100 years a woman is born with that physique. The physique makes her susceptible to attacks, and he wanted to use the marriage to balance her deficiency. But he did not foresee Diao Mao would be more feminine than a woman, and his plan went down the drain. The protagonist then asks what that has to do with her going to the Endless Sea. Her father reveals that in the Endless Sea there is a treasure that can resolve the physique's disadvantages. The hero asks if there are benefits, and the man says there must be, but he does not know the details. Yanlan questions him and asks why he always dodged the questions about her mother. The man says her mother became weak after childbirth, and what he knows is from her will. Shocked, the princess wonders if her mother's departure was because of her and feels guilty. Zhang Bei notices the girl's despair and approaches, asking if she is afraid. With a gentle look, he tells the princess not to be afraid and tries to comfort her at the moment. The boy promises that since her mother is gone, he himself will protect her from now on, but the young lady pushes him away and shouts she is not afraid but feels very guilty about everything. Her father cries and says the girl has good taste because the boy knows how to care for others. With that, he hands his daughter over to the protagonist and reminds him to find the origin pearl. The hero strikes a pose and shouts that with him the country will be strong and the times are calling. His father then grabs him by the hair and calls him son-in-law, taking him to their mission. With a dizzy look, the boy calls him father-law, and the older man drags him for the sect's departure. The scene then shifts to their large flying ship traveling through the skies at high speed. Excited, the boy shouts that he is arriving at the Endless Sea, and his father watches him with a smile. Suddenly, he spots a battle on the beach and wonders what those sea monsters are. One of the clothed monsters attacks a knight and hits him squarely with a fatal blow. With a black eye, he shouts to his father and warns there are monsters attacking on the beach. But his father kicks him off the ship and tells him to go help instead of standing there looking. With a scream of panic, our hero falls hard into the water and seems to be drowning. His father tells Yanlan to stay on the ship and says they will handle the situation very quickly. The young lady leans on the ship's rail and asks the boy's father to be careful. The two arrive on the beach and shout at the monsters for daring to hurt the people. The older brother looks around and wonders where his younger brother is. Suddenly, a hand emerges from the ground and the boy says he is right under his brother's feet. Fallen face down in the sand, he complains his brother is stepping on him without noticing. With a hero's pose, he brags and says the protagonist always makes a grand entrance. He stares at a giant crab and the system collects 32,023 anger points. Furious, the crabs advance and shout that no one should retreat because the fight is starting. Our hero warns the warriors to be careful and tells everyone to back away from there. With a spinning strike, he uses his fire energy and attacks all the monsters at once. The soldiers celebrate that they were saved and praise the boy for being very strong. With a cute look, he wonders if his brother is very skilled in the kitchen. Thinking about food, he asks for a cage and imagines the monsters as a beautiful banquet. The system grants his request and he starts throwing the monsters into the cage. Trapped in the cage, the crab and lobster monsters look quite sad about the situation. With tears in their eyes, the two creatures hug each other and seem to be saying goodbye. The lobster calls the crab brother and the two stare at each other with a sad look. With a mocking look, the lobster says the crab's armor is not as good as hers. Annoyed, the crab hits her and asks if that is the time to say such a thing. Our hero takes a picture of them and says his armor is clearly better. With a wicked smile, he tells his father and brother to catch the monsters for a banquet. Terrified, the giant crab screams in fear and says the boy is not truly human. With a cute look, he imagines the monsters as dishes and prepares for the banquet. The three run along the beach and chase the spicy lobster to catch it once and for all. With a smile, he brags and tells everyone to behold the empire he has conquered. With the monsters in the cage, he turns to the system girl and his brother and says so. He asks her to create a grill and other ingredients, but the girl says she cannot. But to his surprise, the system girl fulfills the request and creates the grill. He brags about the luxurious and extravagant grill and his brother asks what that is. With a smile, the boy explains that it's called a barbecue, but the older one understands nothing. He says his brother does not need to know what it is and makes a funny pose for the crabs. With a wicked smile, he guarantees they will feast very well on the food later. The older brother holds two salt shakers and wonders if that is how he was imagining. Sitting at the table with a lobster on the plate, he realizes it was exactly what he thought. Our hero eats a skewer and offers the lobster his brother to try it too. With a cute look, he swears that after eating, the brother will enter a whole new world. The older brother sees himself surrounded by giant lobsters and seems quite shocked by the vision. With a dramatic pose, he shouts that the food is delicious and surprises our hero. 10 minutes later, the older one is still eating and praises how delicious the lobster truly is. Suddenly, a giant crab arrives and accuses them of eating its relatives, demanding their lives. The soldiers thank the three heroes and their father says there should be no formalities. The boy's father asks why their lord sent so few people to defend against the monsters. With a sad look, the soldier says the heroes are not aware of their real situation. He tells that the Donkey border is always under attack from hordes of sea beasts, but he reveals that the ingenious national master always helped them subdue the sea monsters. Over time, the monsters became so afraid that they would flee just hearing the master's name. But the soldier says recently things changed and he seems to have bad news to deliver. He reveals the crown prince placed the national master under house arrest. With a somber look, he seems to be about to finish his explanation for the heroes. Because of that, it has been a long time since they saw the national master's reinforcements. The soldier complains that dealing with the beast tides has been a major challenge for them. The boy's father is shocked to learn the prince arrested the national master of Donkey. With a supportive gesture, he places his hand on the soldier's shoulder to comfort him. Jiang Bei asks his father if they are still going to the Endless Sea, and the old man gets annoyed with the lobster. The soldier asks if they plan to go to the Endless Sea, and our hero confirms the trip. With a serious look, the soldier seems to have one more important warning to give the group. He warns that the internal layout of the Endless Sea has changed, and they cannot cross without a map. Shocked, the boy realizes the only way to find the path is with a map and despairs. With a desperate look, he asks his father if he has a map with him. The older man turns completely red and shouts that he has no map at all with him right then. Annoyed, the boy calls him a reckless leader, and the system collects 100 anger points. Furious, the father calls him an ungrateful son and throws him to the ground while the soldier tries to calm them. The soldier reveals that the Endless Sea map is actually a national treasure. He suggests that since they helped the kingdom, maybe the king will lend them the map for the journey. Excited, the protagonist says there is no time to lose and they must go to the capital. Arriving in the city, they hear that the beast tide was repelled by some outsiders. People comment that the national master was placed under house arrest by the prince. One of them says the master stole the map, and that is why the crown prince arrested him. Our hero wonders if the master really stole the map and if he has that much bad luck. Arriving at the palace, they are greeted by ruler Sun Jiang and his two sons. The ruler says their heroic deeds have already spread throughout the palace. With a smug smile, the boy brags and says when he acts, no one can rival him. He asks if the ruler can do him a small favor after everything. The man says he can ask for anything, and our hero asks for the Endless Sea map. With a side-eye look, he wonders if the map is still around there. The ruler says the map was stolen and confirms the rumors about the master were true. The second prince accuses the master of stealing the map, but the older man scolds him. The crown prince invites the heroes to stay for a few days in their kingdom. The ruler says he prepared a welcome banquet and tells the heroes to rest. The crown prince points to a servant and tells him to take the heroes to rest. The second prince complains that staying with his older brother is truly unbearable. Their father asks why the crown prince has not left yet and stares at him with a serious look. With a sigh, the crown prince agrees and says he is already leaving the place. From afar, the two observe the trio and comment that their relationship is quite strange. The crown prince apologizes for the negligence and our hero's father thanks him. With a flushed face, the prince seems quite shy and embarrassed by the situation. The protagonist and the princess observe the scene and do not understand anything that is happening. Our hero tells the prince to prepare for the banquet and dismisses him with a wave. He thinks he will only know the truth if he meets this national master. That night we see a tower heavily guarded by the royal palace guards. Our hero sneaks past the guards with a grimace and prepares to break in. With his hand on the window, he realizes it is late and the place is full of guards. With a jump, he reaches a hidden corner and says that must be the place. Silently, he approaches a curtain and tries to peek at what is inside. He manages to see a mysterious figure from the back and seems very curious about the scene. With a confused look, he wonders if that person is the national master. Suddenly, the figure turns around and asks who is there, leaving him shocked at what he sees. A sharp object flies toward him and the boy is startled by the unexpected attack. Fallen on the ground with the sword between his legs, he shouts that the master's life is crucial. The national master introduces himself and asks if the boy is also there for his end. He throws the boy's sword back and tells them to send someone smarter next time. The protagonist asks if he has ever seen such a rich attacker and the system collects 1 anger point. With a throw, our hero's sword gets stuck in the place's wooden door. With a sigh, the national master seems not to care about the young boy's presence. He thinks the boy must simply lack a brain to be there. The master dismisses him and says if there is nothing else, he should leave that place. With a cute look, the hero says he is there on behalf of the crown prince to visit him. With a serious look, the national master stares at him and seems to change his mind about him. Sitting at the table, the master asks what the prince sent him to do and the boy sits down. He thinks the master and the prince must have a very interesting history together. With a relaxed look, he asks the national master 2 questions about the rumors. The boy asks who wants the master's end and stares at him with a serious look. The master picks up a scroll and stares at him with a mysterious and secret-filled look. With a sip of his drink, he reveals the mastermind behind everything is the national lord. The hero is shocked and asks why he is still in the palace if the lord wants his end. The scene focuses on our protagonist, Ai, who seems to be thinking about something. Eating a watermelon, he asks the master to elaborate further on his explanation about the lord. The master says he can tell him clearly that it was not because of the map theft. With a chibi face, he asks what the reason for all of that is if it was not the map. The master reveals the map was never stolen and the lord framed him to be able to eliminate him. Shocked, the boy realizes the great conspiracy, that the master wants the throne and the lord wants his end. With that, he concludes the lord set the trap to frame the national master. The hero asks why he wants to usurp the throne, but the master says that is the 3rd question. With a suspicious look, the master asks what the crown prince sent him to do there. The boy despairs for getting into a huge mess by talking too much. The master accuses him of tricking him and the system collects 390 anger points. Furious, he attacks with several blades and says since he knows everything, he must perish. Our hero runs away terrified and complains that gossiping about the rich requires a lot of caution. One of the blades flies toward him and the boy is startled by the attack coming from the master. With a shield, he defends himself and says he is a guest of the prince to deliver a message. The master stares at him with a suspicious look and does not seem to believe his story much. The boy hands him a letter and the master thanks him, calling him younger brother. In the Tai Hall, the ruler thanks everyone for coming and apologizes for the lack of hospitality. Jiangbei complains that without the map he cannot eat or sleep, and the system collects 208 points. The ruler laughs and says he has already ordered the map to be found and will lend it to them. With his mouth full of food, the protagonist asks what the conditions for the agreement are. The man says they need to help resolve the hidden dangers of the sea monster tide. He thinks if they solve the problem, he can rest on the throne without worries. Furious, the boy asks if he is joking and the system collects 299 points. The ruler asks for patience and explains the country needs the map to direct the battles. The hero agrees but asks him to find the map as quickly as possible and thinks he is lying. The crown prince asks to accompany the group and the father thinks he wants all the credit. The man suggests the second son also goes so as not to let the prince monopolize everything, but the boy says he is very tired and the beach is full of commoners and is no fun. He also complains he does not want to be with his older brother but his father orders him to obey. But seeing the beautiful Yanlan, he thinks that since she is also going, the trip will not be a total loss. With a smile, he agrees to go and his father praises him for being a good son to him. He suggests the trip is dangerous and it would be better for Yanlan to stay in the palace. The boy gets annoyed and accuses him of wanting to keep the beautiful Yanlan as a hostage in the palace. The crown prince tells his father he finds it inappropriate to leave a woman alone in the palace. He suggests it would be better for the hero's father to stay in the palace to take care of the young woman. The ruler gets irritated because the crown prince dares to give him orders like that, but he thinks having more people in the palace provides more security and agrees with his son. With a serious look, he asks the hero Jiang what he thinks of that proposal. The hero complains about the stalling and the system collects many anger points from everyone present. The crown prince dismisses the hall and tells everyone to rest for the journey. Before leaving, he asks the princess to wait and seems to want to speak with her. The lady thanks the prince for his help and for letting Uncle Zhang stay to take care of her. He says he has his reasons, and our hero realizes the prince was watching him. With an arm on his shoulder, the boy tells the young woman to rest and says he will talk to the prince. He says goodbye to the princess and his brother and prepares for the conversation with the hare. The hero asks what he wants, and the prince praises his sharpness and says he has a request. He reveals the matter is related to the national master who is under house arrest. In a flashback, the ruler breaks some scrolls and complains about the national master. He gets angry for being forgotten because of the master, and the prince tries to calm him down. In another memory, the ruler hears people praising the master and suspecting a deal. People say the ruler is mediocre, and a servant calls him Your Majesty. The prince shows a scroll to his father and asks him to take a good look. The scroll was an attack and defense map, and the ruler accuses him of wanting to usurp the throne. Furious, he says the master must not be left alive, but the prince stops him from acting. His father questions him for daring to disobey his orders and stares at him with a serious look. The prince explains the master is the only celestial level who can stop the monsters. He suggests that to teach him a lesson, they confine him for life in the palace. That way the monsters will not invade, and he will not have to worry about the usurpation. The ruler agrees with the plan, and the prince stares at him with a determined look. The prince says that to have a reason, the father spread the rumor of the treasure map theft. He says he did not go to see the master because he knew his father was watching him from afar. To protect him, he positioned guards to confine him, but secretly to protect him. The prince says to eliminate the threat, he needs to lead the troops to confront them. He asks if young Lord Jiang can protect the national master for him. The boy guarantees his father will keep an eye on the master and will not lose a single hair. With a smile, he hands over a letter from the master, and the prince is shocked he got it. The hero brags and says guards cannot stop someone as powerful as him. With a smile, he suggests taking a look at the letter to maybe clear the master's name. The master writes to his student Rushi and hopes the letter finds him well after everything. He says he writes to clarify his ambitions but has no intention of hurting the emperor. The protagonist is shocked to see the master actually admitted he wants to usurp the throne. The prince dismisses him and says they need to leave for the mission in a few days. At the border of the Endless Sea, the prince calls the northern and southern heroes to look. He explains the monsters are divided into 3 alliances and the kingdom is near a hall. The hall master is a 1,000-year-old lobster spirit, and now is the chance to take them down. Our hero remembers the celestial realm and seems to have an important revelation. He recalls the prince said the master was the only celestial level in the kingdom. With a confused look, he wonders what is going on and calls for the prince. He asks the prince if he heard what he said, but the boy seems quite confused. With a serious look, the prince says young Lord Jiang will be responsible for defeating the spirit. Our hero is shocked by the order and cannot believe what he just heard. The prince explains the hall master's strength is at the 4th level of the celestial realm. He suggests the southern hero lead the troops to hold off the lesser monsters, and that he and the northern hero will go to capture the thief and the king once and for all. With a smile, he says they will go straight for the lobster spirit's head to end it. The two shake hands and agree to fight together to defeat the monsters. The prince orders the soldiers to take the water, avoiding pearls, and prepare for the fight. With a war cry, he tells them to follow him to restore peace in the kingdom once and for all. The older brother watches the prince and says he did not expect him to have a fighting spirit. The group dives into the waters and wonders if that is the territory of the Crab Hall. They spot a large underwater palace and decide the battle will be very quick. With a swift strike, our hero attacks the palace guards and advances with speed. In the underwater palace, 2 crab guards were chatting about what they would have for dinner that night. Suddenly, the older brother appears and hits one of the guards with his mace, defeating him instantly. The other guard gets furious at the scene and shouts that he does not want to eat crab dumplings. The monsters shout about the attack, and the hero's brother tells him to take the prince inside. The older one says he will hold them off, and our hero asks his brother to hold strong there. With the distraction complete, the boy says it is his turn and advances with the prince for the attack. Inside, the hall master and his octopus servant panic and say something big is happening. With a flying kick, our hero appears and the master is shocked, asking who he is. With a smile, he provokes him and asks what kind of shrimp he is for not being able to speak right. Furious, the monster stares at the boy, and with that the system collects 999 points. The prince joins him and says with the hero's help he will ensure the monster perishes. The master becomes enraged and releases his foundation realm power to challenge the prince. The protagonist questions the prince why the monster is in another realm and not the one he said. Suddenly, the monster's armor breaks and the boy asks why he is undressing. The hero's father shouts for help and says he can no longer hold off the monsters outside. With his eyes glowing red, the boy says he is going to help his father in the battle. With an evil aura, he turns to the monster and asks how he wants to meet his end. The creature is shocked by the change and wonders why he looks like a different person. The monster uses its shrimp emperor body and says it is not afraid of a brat, but with a sword strike, our hero manages to block the creature's attack with ease. With a determined look, he prepares his sword for the great counterattack. He uses his powerful full moon blade that divides the sky, and a great red power emerges. With the force of the blow, the monster is thrown far away and seems badly injured by the new power. The boy advances with a powerful kick and hits the grounded monster squarely. With a smile, he creates a whirlwind of pieces, and the system collects 288 points. One of the monster's pieces flies toward the prince, who watches everything from afar. With a look of disgust, the prince holds the piece and seems completely speechless at the scene. With the fight resolved, the hero throws the monster away and stares at it with a look of contempt. He says the gaming experience is over and tells the monster to give a good review. Fallen on the ground, the creature is shocked to see its claws broken and cries out in pain from the wound. The prince retrieves the monster's claw and the creature is grateful, because losing it would be a problem. With an intense glow, a golden energy orb advances toward the evil creature. Our hero uses his sky-swallowing demon technique and traps the monster. Trapped in the orbit, threatens the boy, and the system collects 1,234 points. The hero mocks and says he thought it was powerful, and the system collects more points. With a worried look, the creature regrets revealing its secret in a moment of anger. The prince questions it about what the National Master has to do with that situation. The protagonist threatens to turn it into lobsters, and the system collects more anger points. Terrified, the monster agrees to speak and says it heard its nephew was devoured by a man. It reveals that 3 years ago it summoned the monster tied to capture a living being for cultivation. With a horde of monsters, it ordered its lackeys to capture a person with great rewards. With a serious look, the National Master appears to confront the sea monsters on the beach. He floats in the air and stares at the monsters with a determined look full of power. With a blue energy strike, the master prepares to attack all the monsters at once. He was about to advance to the Foundation realm and defeats the monsters with ease. The monster says it was weaker and was captured by the kingdom's powerful National Master. Our hero is amazed by the story and wonders how the master regressed so much in level. Annoyed, the monster tells him not to interrupt, and with that the system collects 22 points. It says that after the master captured it, he offered it a very interesting deal. The master questions it, asking what it wants, and the monster says it has not advanced in 10 years. The man offers people for its cultivation on the condition that it lends its army. Confused, the monster asks why, and the master tells it to cooperate to attack the kingdom of Donkyu. The creature says the agreement is good but seems to have one more condition: to accept the proposal. With a wicked look, it reveals it also wants the master's cultivation for itself. The master stares at it with a serious expression and calls it greedy for its proposal. The monster argues that absorbing his cultivation is more effective than capturing people. With a thoughtful look, the master seems to be considering the marine creature's proposal. He tells the monster to keep its word or else it will face a terrible end for everything. The monster reveals the master exchanged his cultivation, and that is why its strength advanced so much. The prince realizes the master's health worsened, and he had already allied with the monsters. With a slap, the prince hits it, and the monster seems totally shocked by what happened. He questions it why the National Master would trade those things with it in prison. Terrified, the monster says it does not know, and that knowing too much could cost its own life. The protagonist comforts him and suggests they go back to ask the master for clarification. With a wicked smile, the boy stares at the creature and says he needs to take care of the bad guys. With a huge explosion, the underwater palace is destroyed, and the boy leaves with the prince. The older brother is shocked by the scene and cannot seem to believe what is happening. He questions him for having finished off the leader, and the boy says he needs to go back to get his map. On their journey back, the group passes a giant fish and several defeated monsters. Arriving at the palace, the hero's father says he came to visit the master, and the guard asks for a token. With permission, they enter, and the beautiful Yanlan says she brought some food for the master. The master asks who they are, and the boy's father explains they are passing through the kingdom. With a gleam in his eyes, the master seems to recognize the princess and stares at her intently. The young woman is startled by the master's gaze and does not understand what is happening. She asks if there is something dirty on her face, but the master says it is nothing and looks away. The princess explains the prince is worried and sent them to protect him there. The master begins to write something on a scroll with a very concentrated look. He complains the prince only fears he will usurp the throne, and that is why he arrested him. In a memory, the master remembers when the ruler accused him of hiding the map. He also remembers the ruler saying he cannot be kept alive in the palace. The master then remembers the prince trying to reason with his father about his power. The man remembers the prince suggesting they confine him to teach him a lesson. With a look of anger, the master wonders why the prince would confine him for his father. With a smile, he asks if that is what he calls protecting him. In the palace, the princess despairs and tries to explain the real situation to the National Master. She asks Jiang Bei what he told the prince, but the boy says it was nothing much. He explains the ruler suspects the master wants the throne and the prince protected him. With a serious look, the boy says the master actually wrote a letter to the prince. He reveals the master admitted he wants to usurp the throne, but only if he does not have to fight. With a thoughtful look, the princess concludes he truly admitted he wants the throne. With a sad look, the master wonders if he really got everything wrong from the start. With a serious look and his hand on his chin, he seems to be getting ready to say something else. He says he will tell a story so the princess can understand the situation. In his story, the Tiger King adopted a little bunny and asked the fox to be its teacher. The rabbit was smart and skilled, which made it very popular among all the animals. With that, the animals argued whether the tiger would pass the throne to the little white rabbit. The fox was also very proud to have such an excellent and dedicated student like him. But she discovered the Tiger King's successor was actually his second son, the little tiger. The king told his son the forest would be his, and the fox felt sorry the rabbit was not recognized. The rabbit showed its good grades to the king, but the tiger did not seem to care much. The king said it was no use and that he was not his biological son for the throne. The fox then allied with a hunter and offered to lead him to other small animals. Needing food, the hunter agreed to the fox's request and accepted the deal. With white doves flying in the sky, the scene shifts to a forest with a bright glow. The fox and the hunter work together, and she always pretended to be chased away by him. With a confident look, the fox threatened the others and said she would punish them if they offended. Over time, the fox was revered as the great hero and took the position of king of the forest. But to everyone's surprise, the fox passed the throne to the little white rabbit. The master asks if the fox did the right thing and why the king did not pass the throne. The princess says if the rabbit knew its throne cost lives, it would not accept it. With a shocked look, the master seems to have understood the message of the story. He wonders if he really did something wrong and what the others would think of everything. The princess comforts him and says Jiangbei and the prince are returning and he can explain himself. Shocked, he wonders what happened to his army of sea monsters and gets annoyed. The hero's father asks him to wait outside and the boy agrees to obey. The prince arrives and the master hands him a brush as if it were a gift. With his face completely wet, the prince seems to have been very moved by the gesture. The master asks why he came in the rain and stares at him with a confused look. With tears in his eyes, the prince says he wants to ask him something very important. He questions him if he allied with the sea monsters and says he will believe him. The master confirms that yes, and that even regarding usurpation he never hid anything. The prince is shocked and shouts that he does not even want to lie to him about his intentions. Furious with the revelation, he hits the table hard and seems quite irritated by everything. With a smile, he says the master has a lot of courage for daring to harm the citizens. The master is shocked by the question and seems about to explain himself to the prince. He remembers the princess and how she did not want the throne to be stained with blood. The prince questions him and asks why he is doing all of that. With a gesture, he holds the master's arm and seems to want an answer to his question. The prince says if the master has any grievance, he can forgive him for his acts. With tears in his eyes and sweating cold, he seems to be holding himself back from crying. With his eyes closed, the master remains silent and does not seem to want to reveal anything. With a pained expression, the prince seems to be suffering from the master's revelation. With a gesture, he steps away from the master and prepares to leave the place. With one last look at the master, he closes the door and leaves him alone in the room. The master sits down with his eyes closed and seems quite calm about the situation. Alone in his room, he stares into the night and seems to be thinking about everything that happened. Our hero approaches the prince and calls him with a curious look on his face. He comforts him and suggests they talk somewhere else, and the prince agrees right away. In the rain, the prince says he really does not know what else to do and looks quite sad. He laments that on one side is the father who raised him, and on the other his mentor who wants the throne. Jiangbei says if the master wants to usurp, he should be eliminated and not strung along like this. He accuses him of betraying the country and allying with the enemy and asks if he will keep him. The boy also complains about his father and says the old man only hides a knife behind a smile. The prince tells him not to speak like that, and the hero says their relationship is very strange. Jiangbei asks why he is named Rushi, and the prince looks thoughtful. He says he got lost when he was a child and later was treated like a nameless beggar. He says since he returned, his father never looked at him once and his mother comforted him. The prince says he studied with the national master to get his father's attention, but it seemed his father did not care and only paid attention to his other younger son. He says on his birthday a turning point happened and the scene shifts to the past. He says his father sent someone to give him his new name and he receives a scroll. On the paper it was written, "Son Rushi, a real man should be like this," and he is moved. He asked his mother what the phrase meant and she stared at him with a serious look. With a sad and thoughtful look, his mother seems to be hiding something from her son. She says it was his father's hope for him to become strong and that is why he named him Rusha. With his hand over his mouth, he says it is not what she is thinking and looks shocked. His mother tells him not to mention that to anyone, not even to his father. From that moment on, he was no longer a nameless beggar without recognition. He says his father has high expectations for him and that he feels needed and loved. That is why even when the father favored the brother, he still respected him as he always did. Suddenly our hero slaps him and the system collects 666 points. The boy says a name is just a name and he should not let that confine him. With a smile, he asks if he should give him a name, so he calls him father. Furious, the prince shouts Jiangbei's name and the sound echoes throughout the royal palace. The prince feels better and the hero complains that someone comforting him also gets hit. In a large room, the group is welcomed and the ruler thanks everyone for their hard work. He especially praises the second prince for having endured the wind and sun on the trip. The protagonist mocks and says he disappeared without a trace and only showed up at the end. The hero's father announces that the sea monster's lair was taken down for good. With a smile and a fan, the boy asks when he will lend him the map from the agreement. The ruler thinks he did not expect them to defeat the monsters in less than a month. He wonders if he should pretend the map is still with the national master. The boy pressures him and asks why he is stalling and if a ruler wants to break his promise. Desperate, the man wonders what to do and if he should really lend the map. Suddenly a guard runs in and announces that a huge monster tide has appeared. He warns they are approaching the capital and will arrive in less than 3 days. The prince is shocked and asks if Jiangbei did not blow up the crab and shrimp hall. The ruler laughs and thinks with the monsters nearby he no longer needs to lend the map. but he remembers the beast tide will also put him in trouble and despairs at the thought. The man accuses Jiang Bei of fabricating the results to trick him into lending the map. Irritated, the boy complains the ruler calls him brother when he needs something. The prince interferes and says the priority is to create a countermeasure and not blame each other. With an awkward silence, the group seems to be thinking of a solution to the problem. With a serious look, the hero says for the sake of the prince he will let it slide this time, but he warns that if the ruler dares speak to him disrespectfully again, things will change. With a knife in the wall, the hero's group seems quite irritated by the ruler's attitude. In his room, the national master notices the atmosphere is getting stranger and stranger. He hears a conversation and discovers the monster tide is approaching the capital. The guards comment the lair was taken down by outsiders and the prince has not slept for days. The master remembers the story and thinks the rabbit would not accept the throne if it knew the truth. With a determined look, he says if it is like that, he will walk alone towards his end. The guards are startled to see him and try to stop the national master from leaving the room, but with a serious look, he orders them to call Jiang Bei and Miss Yanlan to see him. 3 days later, at the city gates, fire consumes everything and people run in terror. An old man laments for his treasures while people shout that the monsters have invaded. The second prince scolds him and tells him to hurry up to find a place to hide. The ruler tells his son he knows a place in the mountain where they can hide. The scene shifts to a distant view of the palace and the troops approaching the location. Our hero and his group watch the arrival of the monsters with a determined look. Master Shrimp mocks Jiang Bei and says he did not expect that so soon. He tells that after the boy blew him up, he was saved by a mysterious figure. A white-haired person revived him and the monster thanked the Lord for a second life. With a grateful look, he thanks his savior for bringing him back to life. The Lord orders him to bring Jiang Bei's head to him if he does not want to become a corpse again. The monster stares at the boy and swears that on that day he will meet his end for good. The hero's father is shocked that the Lord escaped to the endless sea and understands why he did not track him. With a smile, the boy mocks the monster for getting burned grilling seafood. Furious, the monster threatens him and says he must be tired of living, and the system collects points. With a serious and determined look, our hero faces the monster army in front of him. With a cute face, he and the prince wonder what is happening and who the enemies are. Suddenly, one of the monsters attacks the group from behind and our hero is startled by the blow. The creature challenges him to a fight, but the boy realizes the citizens have already dispersed. With a confident smile on his face, he announces that the real show is about to begin. The scene shifts to an isolated place in the mountains with a large house and a bridge. The second prince asks how long they have to wait, and his father tells him to be patient. Elsewhere, the protagonist and his group run, and he orders everyone to scatter. The boy asks the prince if there really will be wind, and the other confirms that yes. With a determined look, the prince tells them to risk everything on that plan. The group jumps off a cliff and flies through the clouds to escape the monsters. Our hero calls for the system girl and tells her to generate a virtual puppet. With a bright flash, the girl creates copies of them, and the group flees far from the monsters. With a perfect landing, the protagonist and his group manage to escape unnoticed. The monsters arrive and the leader complains Jiang Bei ran so fast he did not even see him. With a clenched claw, the monster leader seems quite irritated by the boy's escape. One of his lackeys warns that they are ahead and the leader orders them to continue the pursuit. Another monster warns they ran into the mountains, and the leader orders them to capture them. The monsters feel a strong wind and look at the sky with a confused expression. One of the lackeys warns the wind is picking up, and the leader says that is even better. He explains that way it will be easier for them to run, and the lackey praises his intelligence. Suddenly, the monster leader stops and complains he is completely out of breath from running so much. He spots the group in a dead end and says they are just asking for trouble. The protagonist and the prince stop running and wait for the monster's arrival. The leader asks why he is no longer fleeing and stares at him with an angry look. Suddenly, a large column of light appears and traps all the monsters in a snare. Shocked by the trap, the monster leader cannot believe what is happening. Outside, the boy and the system girl float, and the system collects 999 points. With a grimace, he mocks the monster, and the system collects 1,688 more points. With a red glow in his eye, the monster leader seems to be preparing an attack. With a smile, he asks if Jiang Bei plans to drown them with that falling rain. He brags and says they are sea monsters and a little rain will not drown them. With a wicked smile, the boy says that is not just a light rain and stares at him. He says that is a storm and uses his fan to summon powerful lightning bolts. With a flash of light, several lightning bolts fall from the sky and destroy everything around the monsters. Terrified, the monsters scream in fear and are hit squarely by the storm's lightning. With protective masks, our hero and his group watch the scene and seem well protected. A hidden villager celebrates that all the monsters were caught by the lightning storm. Another tells everyone to come out and warns that the prince and hero Jiang captured the monsters. The people praise the boy's plan and say he is truly impressive. With a funny grimace, he says the story started 3 days ago and he will tell it. With an MVP pose, the boy seems to brag about his great deed and his genius plan. 3 days earlier, the group was discussing countermeasures for the sea monster invasion. The princess comments it has been raining a lot since they arrived in the kingdom of Dongqiu. With a brilliant idea, the protagonist realizes there is also a lot of thunder in the region. With a kiss, he thanks the young woman and says she was a great help to his plan. He runs off and the princess asks him to take it easy and be very careful. With his hair standing on end, the boy is startled by the lightning and seems to have an idea. He goes to the prince and says he wants to ask him something very important. With a serious expression, he asks if there is a place behind the palace where it thunders frequently. The prince says there are 3 mountains behind the palace where it rains and thunders frequently. He says the place is peculiar and there is a legend that it is cursed by the thunder god. With a cute face, the prince and the hero wonder about the leaking fish and do not understand. The boy explains it is not a superstition but what is called topographical storms. He explains that warm air masses form thunderclouds in the region. The prince is shocked and asks if he wants to lure the monsters to use the storm. With a thoughtful look, the prince wonders what would happen if there were no wind. Our hero despairs, but a guard warns that Miss Yanlan is looking for him. He passes out on the bed and the prince suggests they think of other solutions to the problem. Sitting at the table, the prince seems to be thinking of a solution and writes on a scroll. Suddenly, our hero appears and says he found a solution to their problem. With a sip of his drink, the prince asks what the solution is, and the boy seems confident. With a confident gesture, our hero explains that with this and that the storm plan will be a success. The prince whispers and asks how he borrowed the wind, but Zhang Bei says it is a secret. Suddenly, his fan opens and reveals a face that leaves the second prince completely shocked. In front of everyone, the prince now seems to have a much more feminine and delicate appearance. With wide eyes, the protagonist shouts that the classic reveal is about to happen. At that moment, a man asks why the regent looks so much like a girl and another calls him blind. From the shadows, an evil figure says the prince is just slender and a woman would not understand politics. Soon after, a voice confirms to everyone that the second prince is actually a girl. The kingdom's master then reveals that the person who always took care of state affairs as regent was actually always a girl, leaving the young woman completely speechless at the revelation. In her thoughts, the princess sees herself in the water and wonders why he had to tell her secret. She remembers her mother asked not to tell anyone, and now the master discovered everything. With his eyes closed, the white-haired man seems quite calm after his great revelation. He reminds the young woman that she was the one who asked him a very important question before everything. With a serious look, the master questions what reason she would have to ally with the mermaids. This causes an uproar in the crowd, who cannot believe the kingdom's master allied with the monsters. With her face flushed with anger, the princess seems to be very irritated by that false accusation. The man reveals his true plan was to eliminate her father and usurp the throne for himself. His cold and calculating gaze makes it clear he is not joking about taking power by force. With tears in her eyes, the princess asks forgiveness for having lied to him all her life. The master says the commoners are fools and it would not be a loss if they were eliminated. With a quick movement, he throws several energy blades at the feet of the men who questioned him. Terrified, the men wonder if that madman really plans to take out all of them there. One of them begs the princess to end his life, but she says she cannot do that. Seeing the situation, Zhang Bei gets furious and says they went too far and he will not hold back. At that moment, a beautiful woman holds our hero's hand to stop him from doing something foolish. The young woman reminds him of the promise he made to the national master and that he must think of the prince. The protagonist and the woman stand still, observing the kingdom's master from afar. With a mocking smile, the man asks the princess if she really cannot attack him. He flies toward her and shouts that if she does not strike him down, then he will strike her without hesitation. With this deadly threat, the people are completely terrified, not knowing what to do. A tear rolls from the princess's eye, but her gaze shows great determination. With the sword in her hands, the young woman calls for her master and attacks him without hesitation. Before everyone's eyes, the young woman's blade pierces the body of the white-haired man. The princess is completely shocked by what she just did and cannot believe the scene. With a smile, the master says she will be a good ruler and seems to accept his fate. The crowd panics and demands the ruler appear to take control. From afar, the people spot the bodies of the former ruler and the prince inside a bubble. The people wonder how a woman could take the throne and rule. Zhang Bei gets irritated and defends the princess, saying she always fought for the kingdom. He and the other young woman shout that they are a bunch of ungrateful and shameless leeches. With the confusion, our hero's system collects several anger points from the entire crowd. At that moment, the boy holds the princess's hand to calm her and stop her from doing anything. He says if they do not accept Sun Rai as the new ruler, they will have problems. With a scary face, the protagonist threatens to silence all the witnesses right there. Terrified, the men kneel and accept the new leader, and the system collects more points. The scene shifts to the beach, where the new ruler and her guards look at a ship. She hands Zhang Bei the sea map she had promised for his journey. Suddenly, a holographic screen appears and a voice says the boy hides his talents. In a technological place, a man says the princess is a treasure and he will not disappoint her. The young woman explains the positions in the sea are always changing and the map is essential. Curious, she asks how he knew her father hid the map under the dragon throne. The boy jokes and says her father told him in a dream, but the young woman does not believe him. The princess says goodbye and says if anyone disobeys her, let her know. Our hero warns he will return in 3 days to teach the disobedient a lesson. The protagonist reminds the princess that she wanted to know what he did with Yanlan. He provokes her, but the young woman says she no longer wants to know and will learn to be like him. She turns around and walks away while the boy is called to the departing ship. From the boat, the youth says he got it and gets ready to begin his journey. The princess waves goodbye to everyone and wishes they meet again in the future. Aboard the ship, the young woman says she thought he would tell Rushi the truth, but he denies it. With a cute face, he brags about being good at keeping secrets, and the young woman questions him. She says he just wanted to make sure the princess really got over everything. The young woman comments it is the first time she has seen him so thoughtful, and he agrees with her. With a rose in his mouth, he says he can still grow, and the system collects points from Yanlin. Suddenly, the system girl appears and says unlike him, she does not keep secrets. With a smile, she announces she will reveal the whole truth to the public. The scene goes back to a few days ago, when the master called the couple for a chat. Our hero asks the reason for the rush, and the man says he needs a favor. The master kneels and asks them to guarantee the princess's safety at all costs. He asks if Yanlin remembers the story of the fox and the rabbit, but the boy is confused. The master reveals he is the fox and the princess is the rabbit, and she is actually a girl. Yanlin is shocked, remembering the strange interactions, and discovers the prince is a girl. The man turns to Jiangbei and reminds him of the last question he asked him. The protagonist remembers asking why he wanted to usurp the throne so badly. With a serious look, he reveals everything he did was to help the princess ascend the throne. Yanlin remembers that in the story, the fox allied with the hunters to help the rabbit. Just like in the story, the national master allied with the sea monsters for his plan. The boy calls him a coward for betraying his people, and the man agrees, saying he feels ashamed. He thanks the young woman for waking him up and says to redeem himself and have Rushi take the throne. He reveals that in 3 days he would escape during the chaos of the sea monster attack, then he would reveal her identity and his treason and make Rushi eliminate him. Shocked by the plan, the protagonist and the young woman do not believe it and ask if he is serious. The man explains that only if the traitor is eliminated by Rushi's own hands can she silence the rumors and finally ascend the throne as the new empress. The young woman tries to say he does not need to do that, but Jiang Bei stops her from continuing. The boy says you cannot stop someone determined to leave, and they must respect the choice. The master thanks him and realizes our hero can see things clearly. He asks them to guide public opinion to support Rushi after his departure. With a serious look, the man says he hopes the two agree and he would be very grateful. With a cute face, the boy says gratitude does not fill a belly, and the master offers an exchange. He offers the private location of the Endless Sea map to seal the deal. Our hero says he wants more and reminds him the master is a wind attribute cultivator. With a smile, he asks the man to blow a south wind for 3 consecutive days. Without a second thought, the kingdom's master agrees to the protagonist's request. With the deal sealed, the boy says he will protect the princess, who is now his friend. The master asks him to keep the secret, and the hero calls him a fool for doubting. With a wick laugh, the protagonist seems very satisfied with his plan. The system girl says goodbye and says today's revelations are over. The scene shifts to a man on a cliff shouting in anger at what happened. He complains the monster army failed to take down Jiang Bei and his group. Suddenly, a large water creature appears and completely engulfs the man. A woman with red eyes questions if he has managed to capture Jiang Wangwen yet. The boy is introduced as Li Feng, the brother of the demonic sect leader Li Wan. The woman complains she sent him to the continent, but he has made no progress. She threatens him and says she cannot guarantee his ascension if he does not bring him back. With a wicked look, she provokes him and asks how he will marry her sister. The water creature disappears and leaves the boy alone and completely shaken. With a determined look, the woman decides to unite all the sea monster alliances. The boy goes to a base and questions the leaders why they are not on the continent. With a smile, he says he came to deliver a great opportunity for power to them. With a dark and mysterious look, the young man seems very confident in his plan. The leaders are shocked and ask how he knows about the sea people's pearl. He reveals he knows about the pearl because he saw everything with his own eyes. In a flashback, his father and his clan fought the sea people for the great treasure. During the battle, the pearl accidentally fell into the bottom of the sea and was lost. To keep the location a secret, his father ordered him to eliminate everyone. He explained they would return to get the pearl later, and the location was secret. One of the leaders asks why he did not take the pearl if he knew where it was. With a confused expression, the boy says he does not know what his father meant by that. The boy says to know if it is true or not, they just need to go to the indicated location. Sitting on his throne, the leader asks what the conditions are, and the youth smiles wickedly. He asks the Sea Monster Alliance to help him eliminate Jiang Wangwen and his family. Elsewhere, Jiang Bei analyzes his status and seems satisfied with his current progress. He thinks since Jiang Bei helped him, his sea of consciousness has been expanding little by little. The system girl warns that anger points can help him reach the second stage. Suddenly, a loud bang is heard and the ship they are on starts to rock. Sitting on the edge of the boat, our hero wonders what on earth is happening there. The young woman appears and shouts desperately that she cannot see anything in front of them. Besides that, she says she thinks she heard a mysterious song coming from somewhere nearby. Yanlin asks if he also heard the song, but the boy says he did not hear anything. With a determined look, the protagonist says he will see what is happening and looks at the sea. He is shocked to see there are several huge reefs right under their ship. Suddenly, a mysterious figure steps on the water and quickly approaches the boat. The ship becomes unstable and one of the men shouts to stabilize the other end of the vessel. 2 men try to balance the boat with clubs, but one of them shouts he cannot hold on anymore. Under the ship, several mermen try to flip it, and the leader orders them to drown everyone. Several hands with a bright green aura appear and seem to be using some technique. The water hits the men, who lose their balance and fall off the boat into the sea. With the imbalance, the entire ship flips and throws all the crew into the freezing water. With a loud noise, the boat crashes into the water and creates a huge wave that hits everyone. Underwater, the mermen prepare to attack, and the leader orders them to drown the invaders. One of the mermen grabs Yanlin and is surprised to smell the scent of his people on her. He looks at the young woman more closely and seems to recognize something in her face. Submerged, our hero wonders if he is really going to meet his end there in that strange place. He remembers he still has not found his mother, and an image of her appears. Suddenly, a bright light illuminates everything, and the boy is surprised by the intense glow. With a funny grimace, he wonders how he ended up inside the sea like that. The protagonist finds himself inside a giant shell carrying him somewhere. Confused by the situation, the boy wonders where on earth he is being taken. A man greets him and says everyone was waiting for him, but Jiang Bei just wants to know how he ended up in the shell. The other pulls him and says he will find out everything when they reach their destination. The two arrive at a place called the Shell Palace, which is truly impressive. Yanlin welcomes him relieved, but the boy does not understand why she was so worried about him. Confused by the situation, he points to a woman and asks who that person is. A man introduces her as Quanchu, the leader of the Sea People tribe, and she stares at the boy. The young woman explains the tribe leader was the one who saved them from danger and looks at her with gratitude. In his thoughts, the boy calls her silly for not realizing they were the ones who attacked them. With a subtle movement, the tribe leader shows she heard our hero's thought. She explains there was a misunderstanding and her tribe mistook them for invaders. With crossed arms, the protagonist questions how she knew they were not enemies. The woman starts to explain the reason and holds Yanlin's hand delicately. With a serene look, she reveals the reason for all of that was the girl herself. With a funny grimace, the boy complains and asks why they are holding hands. The leader reveals Yanlin has her sister's blood and shocks our hero with the news. With tears in her eyes, the young woman says her aunt told her stories about her mother. Seeing the girl's suffering, the protagonist hugs her tightly to comfort her. He asks if she thinks he is also involved in her mother's past. With a smile, he promises that even without her mother, he will always be by her side. With a determined look, the boy seems willing to do anything to protect his beloved. Her aunt says the task now is to find the pearl to harmonize the energy in Yanlan. The boy questions where the pearl is, and the leader says only one person knows the answer. She reveals that person is the son of the underworld god and looks very serious. In a flashback, the underworld clan attacked the tribe to steal their supreme treasure, but a group of young people managed to escape, hiding in the remains of a giant whale. The enemy leader ordered everyone eliminated so the secret would not leak. The woman concludes Huang Wu is present and he must know about the pearl. Our hero gets annoyed and complains that guy is like a cockroach that cannot be eliminated. His friend says he is unpredictable, and the boy wonders how they are going to find him. Yanlin's father reveals he left a tracking mark on Huang Wu. He explains that if they follow the glowing mark, they will be able to find Huang Wu's location. With a cute face, our hero and his friend praise the cleverness of Yanlin's father. Excited, the protagonist says they will find the pearl and finish off Huang Wu for good. Far away in a trench, the white-haired youth seems to be having a lot of fun. Suddenly, the hero appears flying and steps on the villain's head, who is startled by the surprise blow. In the depths of the ocean, the group finds a huge trench, and one of them asks if it is the place. With a wicked smile, the white-haired boy confirms he had already chosen that location. He reveals he found out about that place with the help of the phantom sea monsters. At the bottom of the trench, a three-headed serpent guards the pearl and feeds on living beings. The villain promises that after they eliminate the Jiang family, he will take them straight to the treasure. But his real plan is for everyone to be devoured by the creature, and no one gets the pearl. The boy says the trench is bottomless and they will win the battle with ease. One of the leaders questions how he can be sure Jiang Bei's group will come to the location. The villain reveals the tracking mark that Yanlin's father secretly placed on him. He cursed the mark with a spell, and because of that he knows all the group's movements. The monster leader asks what they should do, and the boy says he needs their help. His plan is to capture Yanlin, the weakest of the group, and use her as bait to lure the others. The scene returns to our hero's ship continuing its long journey through the skies. Yanlin's father confirms Huang Wu is in the trench and points to a holographic map. They find it strange the villain has not moved in 2 days, and the boy suspects a trap. Suddenly, the young woman is grabbed from behind by a man who covers her mouth so she will not scream. The attacker throws the tray on the floor, and the noise immediately alerts the group to the danger. The kidnappers look at the boat, and our hero desperately shouts the girl's name. The woman orders them not to move if they do not want anything to happen to the young woman. They leave a message in the water and tell them to go to the trench to rescue her. Angrily, the protagonist punches the ship's rail, and Yanlin's father warns it is a trap. With a determined look, the boy says he does not care, and he is going straight into that trap. In the trench, the two use a breathing technique underwater taught by Quanchu. With a worried expression on his face, our hero shouts desperately for Yanlin. A prisoner with tear-filled eyes, the girl calls for Jiang Bei's name. Our hero and his group arrive, and he demands Huang Wu release Yanlin immediately. With a mocking smile, the villain questions if he really thinks he will release her. He says he can free her, but for that he needs a small condition. The white-haired boy demands Yanlin's father surrender in exchange for her. Furious, the protagonist insults him, and the system collects 1,680 more anger points. Her father offers himself as a hostage, but Huang Wu's lackey suggests they capture him. Suddenly, our hero receives a telepathic message from his father telling him to stay calm. He explains the enemy brought experts, and they cannot compete with everyone. His father warns him their priority is to guarantee the girl's safety at all costs. He reveals he left a fragment of his consciousness in Jiang Bei for a powerful attack. In a flashback, our hero's father says he will now have 2 brothers on his journey. With a look of contempt, the villain calls them fools and says they are about to fall. Yanlin's father asks for her to be freed, and the tribe leaders offer themselves as hostages. The 2 leaders go to get the young woman, and her father asks if she is okay. Suddenly, one of the leaders holds Yanlin's father's arm and stops him from moving. He places armor on the man so he will not try any funny business. The other leader tells Yanlin to flee, but she worries about what will happen. Desperate, the girl shouts her father's name as she is taken away from there. The other leader uses a defense technique and creates a large turtle shell. Huang Wu attacks the group and shouts that none of them will be able to escape that place. The protagonist defends the young woman, and the system collects 1,110 more anger points. With a wicked smile, the villain says, since she was saved, they can all fall together. He summons several sea monsters to attack the couple without any mercy. Our hero's friend watches the scene from afar with an expression of shock on his face. Beside him, Yanlin also seems to be very worried about what is about to happen. Jiang Wangwen is shocked to see the great battle of the sea monsters against Jiang Bei. The boy complains about the amount of enemies and uses his clones to fight and gain points. The tribe leader attacks one of the monsters and destroys it with a single powerful blow. The hero's friend also joins the fight and manages to defeat one of the shark monsters. The system consumes 3,210 points and warns the balance is 0. With his hands on his head, our hero complains his account went offline without any warning. With a determined look, he tells himself to stay calm because he still has a card up his sleeve. He raises his hand and with a war cry summons something powerful for the battle. A massive explosion of blue light occurs and destroys all the sea monsters around. The villain turns to the 3 leaders and convinces them to eliminate the group in exchange for the pearl. With eyes shining with greed, the 3 seem to have accepted the boy's proposal. The leaders turn against our hero, and one of them tells him to keep his word. The villain reveals he will refine the fallen monsters to increase his power. With blue flames, he manages to absorb the energy and move on to the next stage. With a confident smile, he brags and says now no one will be his opponent. The protagonist prepares for the fight, and the system girl alerts him of the danger. One of the leaders tells him to give up and says his fight is useless against them now. The woman of the group mocks and says Yanlin is already severely injured and cannot fight. The other leader also provokes him and asks if his hammer is harder than his shell. With an angry look, the tribe man stares at our hero with great intensity. He attacks him and shouts that the protagonist has no chance of escaping from there. With a powerful blow, the boy is thrown far away and seems to be at a great disadvantage. Our hero's friend is also hit and thrown to the bottom of the cliff. Desperate, Yanlin's father calls out for the youths as they fall into the darkness. Even falling, our hero tells his beloved's father not to worry about him. With a confident look, he says he will not fall because he is the protagonist. The tribe leader turns to Huang Wu and demands he hand over the promised pearl. Suddenly, a large wave of energy hits the man and throws him far away with force. The villain calls him a fool and says there are no eternal friends, only eternal interests. With a wicked look, he threatens him and says whoever stands in his way must fall. With a single powerful blow, the white-haired boy defeats the tribe leader. The other 2 flee and shout they will not let him get away with it there. The other leader threatens him, says he will get what he deserves for his great betrayal. With a mocking smile, the villain asks if people like him care about consequences. He stares at him and says his punishment is about to arrive with full force. With a quick movement, the villain grabs him and pins him down with impressive force. He mocks and calls him the young master of the demonic sect Li Feng, leaving him shocked. Suddenly, a giant serpent appears and our hero despairs at the creature. With his hands glowing, he prepares a powerful energy attack to defend himself. With a massive explosion of water, the 3-headed serpent is thrown far away. The group gathers and the boy realizes the creature is at a very high level. The young woman warns there is a restriction and they will not be able to go up to the surface. With a single blow, the serpent destroys the barrier and the young woman advances against the creature. Suddenly, a bright light shines on her chest and seems to be reacting to the monster. Our hero wonders why the serpent got that way, and the system collects points. Above them, the pearl appears and floats in the air with a very intense purple glow. Worried, the friends ask if he is okay, but he guarantees everything is fine. The pearl releases a massive wave of energy that hits everyone and throws them far. The leaders wonder where the group went and why there is a serpent body there. Suddenly, they spot the pearl and one of them explains the legend of the sea god's tears. The legend says a predestined person can obtain divine vision upon finding the pearl. But if the person fails the test, their memories will be wiped and they will lose the connection. One of the leaders invites them to make a bet and see who the true predestined one is. The other 2 accept the challenge and say they will do their best to become the sea god. They touch the pearl and prepare to discover if they are the true chosen ones. The scene shifts to a message about wisdom and enlightenment for all beings. Our hero wakes up transformed into a fish and wonders where he is now. A man calls him young master and introduces him as the heir to the sea people tribe. In his thoughts, the boy is shocked to realize that is his friend Jiang Bei. He tries to shout but realizes he cannot make a sound and panics. He wonders if he is inside the pearl's world and if he is the true predestined one. The young master orders the others taken back to some unknown place. Confused and scared, our hero wonders where on earth they are being taken. They arrive at an underwater palace and the boy wonders if it is the legendary palace of the sea people. A guard informs the young master that the little princess is fighting someone in the hall. With a tear in his eye, the young master looks sad and the boy holds him tightly. On the floor, a girl argues with one of the guards and introduces herself as the tribe's princess. The young master scolds her for her mess, but she does not seem to care about that. Angrily, the girl says he should not have stayed silent and defends him. He stares at the other guards and asks if they still have not learned their lesson. The young master punishes them and sends them to the valley to pick up shells for 100 years. The princess sticks her tongue out at him and makes a funny grimace to provoke him. In the prison, our hero in fish form hears the noise and wonders what is going on. He recognizes the voice and is shocked to see that it is Jiang Bei's companion. With a tear in his eye, he realizes the two are a young master and a princess. He wonders if Jiang Bei is some important figure and is afraid of what he did. With a wicked smile, the boy thinks if Jiang Bei recognizes him, he will be punished. But soon he realizes not even his friend Jiang Nan recognized him in that form. He realizes they seem to be people originally from that world. The princess hits her head and complains about the boy's stupidity, who stands there understanding nothing. She warns him to fight back next time, because she will not help him with that anymore. With a pouty face, she complains she got scolded and her ear pulled by her brother. With wide eyes, the boy seems to have had a brilliant idea at that moment. He touches the princess's ear, who is surprised by his unexpected gesture. With a cute face, she tells him to reflect in his room for his bad behavior. The princess turns around and walks away with an expression of anger and embarrassment on her face. In bed, she thinks the little mute has become increasingly unruly over time. She remembers he was not like that before and blushes about what just happened. In another scene, the boy is tied up and surrounded by men with crab claws. They call him a mute and question why he has the right to be a personal guard. Afraid, our hero cowers while the men decide to beat him up and throw him away. Suddenly, the princess appears and kicks one of the attackers far away with a powerful blow. She scolds them and forbids them from looking down on that person, just because he is mute. With a determined look, she declares the little mute will be her personal guard. With wide eyes, the boy is completely left speechless by the princess's declaration. The princess promises that from that moment on, she herself will protect him. She touches his chest, but the boy shakes his head and seems to refuse her help. The young woman is shocked by his attitude and wonders why he is being so cold and distant. Thoughtful, she decides next time she will definitely teach him a good lesson. Far away, the young master is relaxing and quietly reading a book in his chair. Suddenly, a projection of our hero in fish form appears and calls him. A guard informs that the lady of the palace summoned him for an important meeting. With a serious look, the boy wonders if the matter is about that delicate topic. He watches the fish in the bubble and says the creature has already adapted well to the new environment. The mythical creature called kun is carefully held by the young master. He orders the guard to deliver the kun as a gift to the little princess. With eyes red with anger, our hero does not seem happy at all with that idea. The young master sends word that he will not be able to attend her birthday banquet today. At a lavish table, the princess laments that it is her birthday and her parents are busy. Sad, she lies on the table and complains that not even her brother came to her party. Behind her, the mute boy holds a gift and seems quite nervous about the situation. Alone at her party, the young woman laments her parents could not attend this year. The princess becomes even sadder, realizing even her brother left her alone. With a gift on his back, our hero gets ready to try to cheer up the princess. Elsewhere, a man complains about his bad luck for having to run into the mute Jiang Bei. The boy takes a deep breath and hopes the princess likes his special gift. The scene shows a small turtle moving slowly on the palace floor. Suddenly, a huge foot appears and is about to crush the defenseless creature. The attacker complains of his bad luck and says he ran into the mute Jiang Bei again. With his eyes closed, the hero hopes his gift pleases the young princess. A voice complains about the lack of manners, and the boy wonders who is speaking. The mysterious voice warns him about a monster and tells him to move his foot quickly. The boy looks down and gets ready to see what he was stepping on. With wide eyes, he is shocked to realize that it is a talking turtle. With a wicked smile, the turtle is surprised and shouts our hero's name. The turtle gets scared and asks if Jiang Bei is trying to take revenge on it. The boy thinks a talking turtle is a rare find and complains about it sneaking around. He believes the princess will like the gift but wonders who this Jiang Bei is. Approaching the girl, the hero thinks she might be disappointed with his turtle. With a depressed look, the boy decides it is better to simply forget the idea. The princess notices him and asks the little mute what is wrong with him. At that moment, a guard approaches and announces the young master sent a gift. The servant reiterates that the girl's brother sent her a birthday gift. With shining eyes, the young woman gets excited and asks what her brother sent her. Upon opening the gift, she is ecstatic to see she received a mythical creature, a kun. She is shocked her brother got a kun and the guard says he could not come. Because of the gift, the princess decides to forgive him and the guard is impressed. Embarrassed, the hero thinks the only gift he can offer is a turtle. The young woman asks what he wanted to say earlier, but he just shakes his head. Annoyed, she complains the boy cannot even say a simple happy birthday. The protagonist is embarrassed and with a flushed face, not knowing what to do in that situation. The young lady remembers he is mute and seems to feel a bit bad about her attitude. With a smile, she invites him to eat with her. Before all the food gets cold, our hero decides he cannot let her see his gift and runs away from there. The princess wonders if she is some kind of monster because he always runs from her. The scene shifts to the Tunan Hall where the turtle was left behind. Wrapped as a gift, the small animal is tossed on a table without any ceremony. The turtle feels a chill and realizes something very bad is about to happen. Angrily, it shouts that Jiang Bei does shameful things even after becoming mute. Confused, the boy wonders why the creature keeps mentioning that strange name. The The princess also remembers that a strange woman has been calling her Jiang Bei. Suddenly at the hall entrance a familiar voice calls for the host to wake up. The system girl appears and warns him he is not a guard but our hero. She explains he is in a dream inside the pearl but he denies having lived there for years. Finding it all ridiculous, the protagonist tells her to open the door while she covers her ears. The system girl cannot believe the host, who leveled up by being talkative, is now mute. She reveals he entered because of his connection with Yanlin and the pearl, leaving him confused. The assistant says if they find her, they will be able to escape the dream realm. The boy looks at the turtle and wonders if it also knows this Yanlin. Carefully he begins to untee the ribbon holding the small animal. Surprised, the protagonist notices the turtle is surprisingly polite to him. With eyes shining with hope, he asks the creature about Yanlin. The animal reveals she is the princess of the sea people, and the hero is shocked by the truth. The turtle asks him if he and Hu Yanlin are not a couple and leaves him shocked. The creature explains the young woman looked quite nervous when they captured her as a hostage. Confused, the hero tries to process that if Yanlin is the princess then he is with her. The turtle confirms everything and says his expression already gives away they are a pair. He calls it a coward and asks where all its shamelessness went. The animal retorts and asks why he is so afraid to give her a gift. The boy thinks the princess deserves something much better than he can offer. Irritated, he asks how a turtle can compare to a kun and she stares at him. The little creature gets wide-eyed and seems to have had a revelation. With a wicked smile, he thinks how Jiang Bei could not know Hu Yanlin. The turtle feels wrong because happiness seems to belong only to others. In the Junyan Hall, the princess says they have a mission and asks if he is confident. With a flushed face, he agrees while the girl strokes his hair with a smile. She reveals her brother and parents are always going to the Junyan Hall lately. Their task is to find out the truth behind it, and the boy is somewhat surprised to sneak, and she asks the hero to use an invisibility spell. Their strategy is to spy, and the boy's heart races being near the young woman. He conjures the magic and thinks he needs to keep a safe distance from the princess. With a smile, the young lady praises his obedience, and the boy is left not knowing how to react. The princess steps forward and says she will find out what her brother is really doing. Hidden and invisible, the young woman peeks through a crack in the door with great curiosity. Inside, she spots the lord of the palace and the young master in a secret meeting. The Sea People's divider Kwani says he read the divination, and the result is the same. He reveals with sadness that the Millennium Crisis is completely inevitable. The young master asks if there is a solution, and the old man says where there is no water, there are problems. With a determined look, the diviner states that a gentleman pursues his goals with grit. He reveals the key to solving the crisis lies with the young master, who is shocked. The old man explains that for millennia the endless sea has been plunging toward the continent. Furthermore, he warns that soon a great catastrophe is about to happen to them. The Millennium Crisis will make the sea roar and the earth erupt once again. Seeing his people suffer, the young master despairs and asks what he can do. The diviner shouts that he must sacrifice himself because only his body can calm the sea. Furious, the princess barges into the room and asks who dares say such a thing to him. Our hero walks in right behind her and wonders if all of that is just an illusion. In the Palace of Leisure, the young woman's brother calls her a scoundrel, leaving her in tears. The protagonist sees the princess crying and running away from her brother with a broken heart. Back to the present, the young woman's brother looks at our hero and tells him to enter the room. The boy asks how many years he has been with the princess, and he answers that for decades. With a thoughtful look, the young master reflects on how time passed so quickly. He reveals the younger generation will migrate and the hero will escort the princess. With confidence, he says he knows the boy's loyalty and that the princess is in his hands. As soon as the little mute retreats, the young master begins to meditate in an isolated place. He remembers Quen said only his rare water body can condense the pearl. But he knows the mute has the purest body and is only influenced by her presence. The boy realizes the effect of the pearls in purifying his constitution is minimal. An oyster gets annoyed and shouts for him to use its pearls to purify himself. He slaps the creature and asks if he was too hard on it in the morning. Upon leaving the hall, his sister confronts him crying and says she heard everything and will not let him go. With a serious look, the boy says that is the responsibility of a young master. Desperate, she shouts he is her brother and she does not want him to sacrifice himself. The young woman suggests they let someone else take his place for the sacrifice. Annoyed, he calls her Quanro and a scoundrel while slapping her away. The young master hopes his sister Ruo will not hold a grudge against him for his attitude. He knows if he does not sacrifice himself, then she will have to take his place in the prophecy. 2 days later, on the migration trail, the princess follows sadly in her carriage. With a pillow in her hands, the young woman calls her brother a big fool and cries for him. Our hero accompanies her and she asks him to promise he will return alive. With a gentle gesture, the boy touches the princess's hair ornament carefully. To comfort her, the protagonist strokes her head and tries to calm her heart. She hugs him and asks if her brother does not want her around anymore. Because of that, the two face each other in a moment of silence and deep connection between them. He uses telepathy to say her brother protects her, and she is shocked by his skill. With tears in her eyes, the young woman realizes everything was to protect her and remembers her mother. In a memory, a boy cries and asks if his father will not return home anymore. His mother comforts him and says the sea god will protect him and will always be with him. Back in the present, the princess observes the landscape with a new determination. With a serious look, she seems to have made an important decision about her future. The young woman warns she will return because as a princess she cannot abandon her people in the fight. With courage, she declares she will not let her brother face all of that alone. The turtle is surprised because the little princess showed quite a bit of courage. The Kun explains her choices will come from her heart and not from the sea god's past. With a hug, our hero thinks the princess remains as courageous as always. He pushes her away a little and starts to say something very important to her. With a small smile on his lips, the boy finishes his sentence with confidence. He ends by saying he will accompany her on her journey and leaves her shocked. Moved by his words, the young woman is left speechless and seems to be emotional. The two stare at each other with their faces very close, and a romantic mood fills the air. At that moment, they kiss while the turtle covers the scene with a sign. Suddenly, the Millennium Crisis begins and a huge storm hits the ocean. Several sea creatures are thrown into a sea of lava and cry out for help. The young master prepares for battle and conjures a powerful energy attack. With a single strike, he manages to create a massive explosion and stop the lava wave. The princess's brother focuses his energy on the blue pearl and hopes everything works out. With tears in his eyes, the young master continues the ritual with great determination and sadness. His tears merge with the pearl and create a powerful wave of energy. He orders his guards to form a barrier to help him contain it. The boy realizes that in the end he will need to use his water body to refine the pearl. The energy sphere collides with the lava and tries to contain the massive explosion. He shouts and uses the spirit gathering formation to break the barrier, but the formation fails and he wonders if it will really have to be his sister to do that. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurs and the tide barrier is about to collapse. Shocked, the boy sees his sister appear in the middle of the battle to help him with the crisis. She flies toward the pearl and her brother shouts desperately for her to come back. With a determined look, she says she cannot be left out of such a heroic act. The boy tells her not to be foolish and go back, but she holds the pearl with all her might. The young woman absorbs the energy sphere into her body and prepares for the sacrifice. She wonders why, after praying to the sea god their whole lives, it all ended like this. Her brother screams and despairs, wondering if the sea god is sleeping. The princess says everything is fine, because from that moment on everything will change. With immense power, she declares she will protect everyone and releases a golden energy. Her energy hits the lava with full force and a massive explosion occurs at the site. With her power, the lava cools down, and the ocean finally grows calm in her presence. The people of the sea celebrate, cheering that the princess managed to solve the crisis of the millennium. The animals mention that she might not be a deity, but she definitely has a divine nature. Our hero holds the fish tank and wonders if his beloved princess will ever come back. Suddenly, the boy gets hit in the face and has absolutely no idea what is going on. The impact sends the animals flying out of the tank, and they tumble hard onto the ground. Looking upset, the princess's brother shows up and asks him if he remembers the instructions he was given earlier. He grabs him by the collar, yelling that he was supposed to keep his sister safe but completely failed his mission. With tears in his eyes, the hero explains that he was simply respecting the choice she made for herself. 500 years pass by, and the main character is sitting all alone holding a little turtle. The creature thinks about how the quiet boy built a temple for the princess and kept it up for so many years. Suddenly, a few sea monsters show up and say they came to visit Her Highness. The young man wonders why the illusion hasn't faded away, especially since the crisis has already been resolved. Very carefully, one of the monsters offers a plate of fresh fish as a tribute. The others also offer pearls and even a freshly shed shell as gifts for the princess. They bow down and share that, even though she is gone, there are still so many creatures who love her dearly. Right at that moment, tears begin to roll down the eyes of the statue of the lost princess. Our hero is left completely stunned and speechless as he watches this scene unfold.